Welcome everybody, we are live here from St. Louis, the capital of chess in America, with another edition of Today in Chess. My name is Alejandro Ramirez, I'm here with Grandmaster Yasser Seirawan.
Alejandro, what a thrilling round it's been so far. And
Absolutely
the candidates,
amazing.
of course.
We're covering the candidates tournament going on in Moscow as the world is trying to decide who is going to be the next challenger to Magnus Carlsen for the World Championship. It's been an amazing tournament so far. Cool round also.
Oh wow! No, yesterday's round, today's round, and the players are getting ready for the finish. And it's everything we would want in a top flight chess tournament.
Absolutely. And let's take a look at the standings going into round 11. We have Fabiano Caruana and Anand-Karjakin. They lead the tournament with 6 points out of 10 going into today's round. Vachier-Lagrave and Vachier-Lagrave are half a point behind. Very, very close. Anish Giri still seeking that first decisive result in this tournament. He has 10 draws so far. He's not out of contention by any means, but needs to start winning. Peter Svidler, Hikaru Nakamura, and Veselin Topalov definitely having disappointing results. Not mathematically eliminated, but practically speaking, it seems very difficult for any of these players to qualify as a challenger to Magnus Carlsen.
Realistically, yes.
Yes. And with more information about the candidates, we have Grandmaster Maurice Ashley.
Well, after yesterday's exciting round, American fans were abuzz. Fabiano Caruana pulling off an amazing win against five-time champion Viswanathan Anand. And today's result, everybody was looking at, hopefully he could defeat tail-ender Vasyl Topalov, but it was not to be. He had a rocky game, came out of the opening, horrible as a matter of fact, but was able to stabilize, even had a winning chance, real winning chances on the board, but was only able to draw that game in the end. Still, he is currently in first place, clear, waiting to see the result of the game between Anand and Karjakin. His road ahead will be great. However, despite the rocky game today, he gets white against Aronian, and then in the next round, white against Svidler before that critical last round matchup against co-leader from the last round, of course, Karjakin. So Caruana looking as though he's in the driver's seat right now. With more on the rest of the tournament, here is my colleague, Grandmaster Eric Hansen.
Thanks, Maurice. I'm really looking forward to the final few rounds. No matter who you're a fan of, these last few days are going to be pretty nerve-wracking. We're already seeing it in the play by the players, and so today I'm really looking forward to analyzing the games, along with a few special guests we have lined up. And back to you, Alejandro.
Absolutely.
Oh my God! Come on, let's face it. Today was a thrilling game.
It was a thrilling game.
Everything from the opening, the play. I thought that Veselin was playing incredibly energetic, and then Fabi came up with some fantastic resources, and unfortunately, I had already locked in a victory for him at a certain point. His exchange up, it looked like he completely stabilized several, what I thought were easy winning looking positions, but in the end, I think he just tricked himself.
Yeah,
we'll miss some tactics.
We'll definitely dissect that game later. I think it's a very interesting one. We'll take a look in depth at that game in just a moment. But first, let's take a look at what these players are playing for in Moscow. The tournament format is a double round robin. Each player will play against each other twice. Time control 100 minutes for the first 40 moves. Once they reach that threshold, they get another 50 minutes. Once they reach move 60, they get another 15 minutes. And all throughout, they get a 30-second increment. The winner of the tournament plays Magnus Carlsen for the World Championship, allegedly in New York in November. It's going to be very exciting. And it's pretty much a winner-takes-all tournament. But that being said, the prices are still pretty good. $107,000 goes to first place, $99,000 for second, $19,000 will go for last, and that should just about cover the expenses of seconds and preparation going into the tournament.
I'm kind of thinking 6th, 7th, 8th breaks
even.
Even a slight wobble on that one, but 5 very decent prizes and the grand prize.
The juicy one will be that qualification spot to challenge Magnus Carlsen. That's what everybody's playing for. There is no second place in this tournament. That's what makes the candidates such an exciting event.
Right. Shall we jump into the game?
Well, before that, let's remind the viewers that this is an interactive program. Feel free to plug in.
Yes.
Call
telephone.
us. We have a telephone number that you can call us and join the conversation that we should have on the screen pretty soon.
It was a 314 number. I think.
It was a 314 number.
Well,
And we'll actually have several guests calling in today. I'm being told that Fabiano's manager, Lawrence Trent, will be joining us in the first half. And Gary Kasparov did promise to call back today. They will be calling as well as you can call at 1-314-361-5465. We'll be waiting for your call.
Very good, very good. I heard Eric talking about nerves. I'm sure Lawrence is a bundle of nerves.
Oh
right
my
now.
God, he must be suffering right now. That would be an
Exactly.
interesting phone call for sure. Maurice, do you have more insights on today's game?
Well, today's game was definitely topsy-turvy. I think we all thought that Fabi was smoothly going along. Everybody was predicting victory for him. Well, maybe not in today's game, but it's certainly not the way he played. He looked uncertain. We know from the Sinquefield Cup, the way he won that in dominating style, 7 wins out of 10, 7 wins in a row out of 10, that he can get it going. But today, we thought maybe he would, and then he just looked uncertain. He might just be getting nervous in this competition so far.
Yeah, there were a lot of questions heading into today's round. For Fabiano, it was he going to continue his high level of play that he had shown the day before, or fall back into a little bit of inconsistency, which he's shown with the black. He's had a few very tough positions with black, so he still hasn't stabilized yet, and that was definitely a big question going in, because if he does, he's looking very, very impressive with white. And then there's a bunch of other questions about the other players, which a lot of people are curious. Will Aronian, come back into the tournament, or will it be a repeat of London? Is Anand able to recover after the game yesterday? There are a few different factors heading in, so it's really exciting to see which player is going to handle the nerves best.
It's incredible the way the weaknesses of the players are showing themselves in this tournament. Also, Giri, for example, hasn't been able to win any games so far. Certainly a very strong player, had some promising positions, but been stuck in the mud to this point. And also players like the tailenders, Nakamura, who just thought this tournament was so important for him, but played miserably throughout, can't show his stuff. And like you mentioned, Aronian, always messing up on the big stage. Anand at this point really wants to prove something right now, because if he doesn't, there are a lot of young players who will never let him see another shot at the world title.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for Anand, because the candidates, one of the big qualification spots, a couple of them are due to rating, and we got the ratings are getting higher and higher, and it almost rewards activity. So it's going to be harder for some of the veterans to keep up.
And sorry to interrupt, Eric, but we have breaking news from Moscow. We have a result, and to answer your question, if Aronian is going to come back, it seems no. The answer is not this time, apparently, as he has fallen to Peter Svidler. He lost his game with white in quite a tragic fashion, I think. At some point, I thought he was just cruising.
Much better.
Yeah,
yes.
Definitely much better in the position.
Wow.
Then I thought it was going to be equal. We thought, okay, Aronian's not going to win. Left it alone, and suddenly I come back, and it's Peter Svidler with the black pieces who has won his game. He is now at 50%, as is Aronian, I believe.
Yeah, that's a dreadful result for Levon. It just really kills his chances.
That is a big blow for the Armenian player. It seems like it's London all over again for him. Famously, 2 cycles ago in the London candidates, Levon Aronian had a crushing performance. The start was beautiful. He crushed everybody. He was leading the tournament, and he just fell apart.
Yes.
Completely fell apart. And it seems like the same thing is happening to him again here in Moscow. He is now pretty far from the lead.
Chess can be very painful.
Very painful.
Yeah, to see this great player lose, unfortunately, against a player who hadn't won a single game. And I'm sure Levon, in a part of his mind, kind of targeted Peter. So
Absolutely. He went for it. I mean, you see the game today.
Right.
He went for it. He was like, Peter Svidler, I got to kill this guy.
Right.
I got to kill this guy. I got to catch up to the leaders. This is my chance. And I thought he was going to do it. He had a fantastic position from the opening. We'll be analyzing that game after we look at the Fabiano game. I thought he had it.
Exactly. Me
and
too.
not only did he not win, he lost.
Oh, brutal.
Wow.
Brutal result.
Absolutely.
And it really shapes up our leaderboard, of course.
Absolutely, a lot. Well, speaking of these games, let's start from the very beginning, the Fabiano game, because it was a very complicated game. Yasser, why don't you take us through what happened today? I think from the very beginning today will be okay.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, it seems to me like C4 has
become the fashionable
opening.
thing, huh?
I'm so happy because I was an English player most of my career, and things moved along pretty briskly. as both players showed their preparation early. This was all been standard fare. And now right here, this move, rook a7, that is not the intuitive, natural move that comes to mind when you get to this position.
It's such a complicated variation, and the fact that rook a7 is a move, it just makes it seem like this is so unnatural.
Right. I'm much more familiar with the g5 move,
Yes,
as well as rook b8, but rook a7 really mixes things up, and it gets wild quickly. h3 takes, and now this very crafty and important move, queen c6, hitting the rook on h1. This seemed to be all part of Topalov's preparation as he captured. This was actually, I think, the first critical moment right here.
yeah, this was an important decision, I think.
Right, and this is where we all felt that maybe knight d3 check.
A very
bishop
clever
takes-
move, by the way. Knight
Yes.
d3 check.
Now you take with check, and instead of, you'll see in the game that this bishop on f4 was able to come across to the d4 square where it was much more useful. And here, after queen c6, you would get similar to the game position, but maybe this bishop on f4 is more poorly placed. In the game, Fabiano did not play knight d3 check. Instead, he took the rook at once. The game went bishop takes e5, queen c6, bishop d4, and suddenly after this move, it's just an unpleasant position to play. White's very active. All of Black's pieces are on their original positions with the exception of the queen, and White is just going to develop very smoothly. This light square bishop, if it ever comes to g2, it just freezes Black's position.
The material advantage for Black doesn't seem to justify such weakness on development, and later on also on the king, because where do you put it?
Exactly. Now here, this was a strange move for me by Veselin. He played queen h5. Boy, I tell you, there's no way I wouldn't have taken this pawn and gone for a position like this, as I just think that this position is really nice for White. But that wasn't Veselin's choice. Maybe he overestimated his position, I'm not sure. He did play the move queen h5, a very important move, king f8. And although Fabi's on the ropes, he still has a great deal of resources. And of course, he is the exchange ahead. The play continued. And, oh, this was a very important moment right here. Pardon me. After rook d8, Topalov, if he wanted to, could have made a forced draw at this point, okay? And it goes to show that even though Veselin's having a very bad tournament by his standards, he's playing for the win right here. He could have played the very forcing combination knight d6.
Running checkmate on f7, forcing a Black reply.
Exactly, forcing Black to capture the knight. Bishop takes g7 check. King takes, and it's a very straightforward perpetual check that Topalov declined. I'm sure he saw the move knight d6, but I'm sure he felt that this was a position he wanted to play. So he did not play the move knight d6. Instead, he played bishop c3. And now something starts to go wrong for Topalov. Maurice, you've got some insights, please.
Well, we just want to point out another moment here in this position. Right here, the players in the press conference felt that White had a substantial advantage, or at least compensation for that exchange sacrifice. As you see, it's very natural in this position to castle, get your king to safety. However, Eric, right at this moment, the move c5 really caught their attention. They mentioned that this move would have been quite strong, guarding the b6 square, preventing an easy b6, opening up the game. And then, of course, you can castle anytime. Plus, the bishop can go to b5 in some positions. So it looks like that's a move that really allows White's position to breathe and would have put real pressure on Fabiano.
Yeah, it's missing a move like that that indicates to me that Topalov is not in his best shape. When he's in shape, he finds, the right dynamic moves in the right move order, move after move after move. I mean, that's the type of player he is. So missing a move like that to me is kind of indicative of how his tournament's been. He just hasn't been able to put everything together yet.
Yeah, with him, an exchange sack is nothing, right? It's like that's his calling card. He always sacking a rook for compensation. But you need to find the right moves. A move like c5, I mean, total bind on this side of the board. Black would have to find moves. Instead of that, castles, b6 comes, and that's like a gigantic relief to see this move, because now the bishop can come into the game, the rook can come into the game, and then it's just much more fluid development.
It's just a huge difference there in the resulting positions. I think position after c5 is really what Topalov was aiming for, so it's a bit It's a big misplay there.
Very strange, even given that he's a much stronger player than we are,
Right.
and c5 looks pretty automatic. In this position, as we go further, knight b5, a rook to d8, that mention of this line with knight to d6 that forces the draw, knight to d6. In this position, of course, you cannot capture with the queen because suddenly bishop g7 check, and there goes your queen. And you might have gotten a lot of food, you think, but all of a sudden queen g5, and that rook is hanging after king f8, give us everything. So that line would have forced bishop takes on d6, and then the same thing as mentioned, bishop takes g7, and this would have been just a perpetual check that white has to go for. You've got to give Topalov credit, though. In this position, instead of playing after rook d8, knight d6, he did go for it with bishop to c3. That shows that he's not just happy to draw. I mean, a lot of players might have thought he's not playing well. He's happy to draw. Why don't you just go straight for the draw and walk out of here? He actually played on.
Well, I think for him, he wants to prove something to himself. He wants to play a nice game this event. I mean, he still has those ambitions. Like every chess, we just want to play one game where we're not making blunders, just a clean game. And he's still looking for that one game, and he's hoping for it here. And when you sacrifice the exchange, I think he was pretty committed himself mentally to make it a fight.
Continue to play. Yeah. Well, the result was absolutely a draw. I think that this draw looks as though Topalov is mathematically out of the competition, because I don't see any way, a combination of wins and losses with all those people ahead of him, that he could possibly come back with only 3 rounds to go. That looks like he is now officially done in the tournament.
Yeah,
Back to you guys.
So. Well, we do have a caller for us,
okay.
so perhaps we should get to that. Hello? Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Hello, who do I have the pleasure of speaking to?
Yes, hi, this is Ernest.
Ernest?
Ernest?
Yes.
Ernest, how are you doing, Ernest? Where are you calling from?
I'm coming from Oklahoma.
From Oklahoma. All right, awesome. Do you have a question for us or a comment?
Yes, first of all, I would like to say good job, everyone.
Thank you.
Great stuff. The thing is, I wanted to ask, what is your opinion on why the Sicilian defense has not been featured in this tournament? The only thing I can figure is that maybe these players don't think it's a solid enough option, and they want to maybe play something more solid, or maybe something a little bit more drawish. I'm not sure. So I wonder if you guys could offer any thoughts on that.
Well, I think that you're answering it for yourself.
It's a risky defense.
It just comes down to risk management in this tournament.
Yeah.
And this is not the type of tournament where you risk with black and speculate. I think this is the type of tournament when you hunker down, you're solid, you're like, nothing's going to happen to me with black.
But we may see a lot more Sicilians as we get down to these rounds where you're going to have to win with black.
Yeah.
By the way, I think we have some breaking news.
I think, are we ready for that? Well, I think we'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
And we are, I mean, talking about the Sicilian, which other defenses would you like to see in this tournament that we haven't seen?
Caro-Kann.
Okay,
a French defense. Come on.
At least one French defense
Of
would be nice,
course,
right? But I
of
don't think
course.
we're going to see it.
I think the Sicilian has plenty of variations for us to check out. I mean, you'd love to see an exciting dragon, maybe. I don't think you're going to see that. An exciting Najdorf, some wild lines. But you're right, Yaz. You guys, risk management is everything with the black pieces. There's definitely a play it safe strategy early on. Let me get some solid positions, some E5, Berlins if possible, in the early part of the tournament. If I need a draw, I'll always will that out. But if I need a win, I've got to have something risky to play with the black pieces, and you'll see some sharper lines emerge, the Sicilian in particular, as one of those lines.
Sorry to interrupt you guys, but we have breaking news from Moscow. After a huge blunder, the curse of Giri has struck back. Giri has drawn his game against Hikaru Nakamura from what is very likely a winning position, completely blundered a simple tactic, was forced to liquidate into a draw, and he must be kicking himself.
Oh, my
Unbelievable. Incredible. He had such a crushing position in that game. That is just insane. You know, he keeps saying, well, about his draws. but I don't know what he can say about this one. He was dominating in that game.
Well, he just simply
there's no other way to
blundered,
put
and
it.
we'll be taking
I'm
a
in
look
shock.
very soon.
Really,
at that.
guys, I'm just in
Unbelievable.
shock.
Yeah, I mean,
His advantage today was supreme.
it was. Yeah, that's two. He has forgiven both Americans in this tournament in the second half.
Thank you, Anish.
Yeah. Against Fabiano Caruana, completely crushing position. Couple of good moves, and Caruana can resign. And here against Nakamura, he has a absolutely crushing position. Huge blunder, which we will take a look at in a second. And wow, just a big, big result.
Indeed. Shall we continue with the Fabiano Topalov game?
Absolutely. Let's finish up the Fabiano Topalov game before we move on to other things. I think that's a good place to keep going.
Well, where we had left it was about these parts, and after queen d5, bishop b4, queen f3, bishop f1, this move h5, just a huge move. It liberates the rook on h8. Suddenly, all of black's pieces are blossoming.
It breathes life into that rook.
Big time. Rook
Big
on
time.
c8 is working. Queen on f3 is ideal. And the best that Veselin could come up with was to lose a pawn and to be forced to trade queens. Now, at this moment, this is when we really started coming in on set, and we were looking at rook takes d7. And Veselin saw this line of play. He rejected it because he found a win for his opponent, which was rook h2, bishop comes to b7, rook goes to b8.
Now you must defend this pawn on f2, so the bishop must retreat.
Bishop must retreat to e1. Rook takes b7, rook takes b7, rook h1, rook takes b6, takes, king c2, and Veselin didn't take this line too much further, but he just basically felt that he would be losing, and I don't disagree. I think he is, in fact, losing. But this play, it's not just it's not the easiest win.
To me, it is still very unclear. I mean, that pawn on the a file is quite scary. You brought your king all the way to d3, but it was also possible to have played a4 and king a3 to keep it on the queen side by playing, for example, king a2 here, and on rook e2, answering with a4 to give the king a little bit of a loft. It's still unclear, I think. I mean, especially in such considerable time pressure that they were at in this point.
And by the way, you raise a very important point. Fabi was down to what, about 3 minutes, I believe.
3 minutes, yeah.
Now, that 30-second bonus is huge.
Yes.
I mean, it always kind of throws you off. But it scares the bejesus out of you when you are down so low on time. This was a line, however, that Veselin did reject. He did go for bishop d6, rook c4, king, and now, at this point, this was, in my view, already getting to the point of easy.
Well, it's an extra exchange. I mean, even in time pressure, that seems
Nobody understood why he didn't capture on f4 at this point.
I think Fabiano doesn't know why he didn't
I
capture
mean,
on f4.
to my mind, this was just as, I mean...
And you have to take with the e-pawn, which is so bad for white.
Right, pardon me, just to boldly point out the obvious, that taking with the g-pawn would allow g3.
Yeah, and the pin on the second rank is too fatal.
Exactly. So we have to see e takes f4, then d5, and what in the world is going on here? I mean, this is just so easy for black.
And you might be wondering, the queenside pawns look dangerous, but actually you can ignore them. And for example, the continuation b4,
yes,
king f8.
Very good move, by the way.
Yes, bringing the king to the center. a4, king e7.
Very good.
a5. You don't actually have to react to these pawns.
In fact, don't take it.
In fact, just leave it alone. After
you,
king d6, for example, I think is good enough.
King d6 is good enough. Also, there's just simply, you can bring your rook to h1, and whenever you need to get behind that a-pawn, there's always this very handsome check. And also, if you ever want to trade rooks, there's an opportunity down the line. In the meanwhile, your king is coming to d6,
f6, e5.
It's over. What is there to discuss? Nothing. Instead, Fabi allowed a trick that he shouldn't have allowed. Rook e1 was fine. There was also a line here that Maurice and I were looking at, and I believe it went, rook takes f2. How did we do this?
f5.
This was a beautiful moment.
f5.
Yes. Maurice pointed out this really wonderful line, f5. So that stops all of these mating ideas. F2 is on pre. The game is about to be claimed until you see this move, bishop F5. And then things get pretty interesting after the move E6. Okay, but first of all, there are several ways of dealing with this move. The simplest, again, as Maurice pointed out, was D5.
Very nice.
So yeah, you want to get behind with rook E1.
And just to explain why d takes e6 doesn't work?
Of course. In fact, D takes E6 is still also winning for black. After check, for example, King F7. You do lose this rook on C1,
Yeah,
but check this out. Rook takes F2, or pardon me, even bishop takes F2.
They're both good.
And black pawns are far faster than white's.
Yes.
So that would have been a winning line, and an easy winning line.
Yeah, I
at
think
that.
And it's important. It's important, guys, to point out this position. People might want to understand why. In this position here, F5, this move F5, it just shuts down white's play. This is the key. This bishop on D3 has some potency. It can dream of being a piece in the position. But with F5, it's stuck. This wall of pawns just says to black, it says to white, forget it. Your bishop is horrible. It has no future. And if you take en passant, well, hello, that's not changing anything. Now the king can breathe. Now it's just going to be an armada of pawns coming down the board, and this is going to be wonderful for black. This is just crushing. I mean, all he has to do is play this move F5 with all those multiple variations. Right here, after E5, he plays F5. This is not a hard move for him to see. The game is virtually resignable after this moment. It's virtually resignable.
No, you're faced with a tough position. Like white probably is going to en passant, because if you don't, there's not really another place for that bishop to go.
But I mean, look at this position. This is awful.
No, you have B4, a couple other moves, but it looks losing to me.
Yeah, these pawns are going to come down the board. He misses this move F5. Can you imagine winning with the black pieces and being up already, and now a full point ahead of the field? Okay, if Karjakin draws, he's only up a half a point, but still, he would have taken the lead, and you know how momentum is for Caruana. He would have been completely in the driver's seat, virtually winning the tournament right now.
Maurice, we only have a few moves until the game actually finished, so why don't you take us through what happened?
Well, there was rook E1. Oh, sorry, did you want Maurice to do that?
Either one can do
Okay,
that.
so there was rook E1. Now, instead of this very, very powerful move F5, rook E1, and then suddenly, and
After
really,
rook
C2, suddenly white's game has a lot of tricks based on the idea of a second exchange sacrifice of rook takes C5, and boom, you're getting a pass B pawn going.
Right.
And this is where things
got
very shaky here for Fabi. He played the move G5. Bishop takes, rook takes E5, and I'm sure when he did this, he was thinking, oh, I'm just ripping him off, you know. And then suddenly bishop F6.
And it was very unclear.
Right.
And here
exactly.
Fabi took a very interesting decision. He offered a draw with the move rook
to D5.
You might be thinking there's plenty of play here in this position, and that's true. It's very murky. No matter what the computers say in this position, it is very unclear. And I think Fabiano psychologically felt, let's wrap this up. Things are not going my way.
Right.
Let's draw.
So he played this move. And what I was looking at with Maurice was the move bishop E4. And I was trying to make this move rook H6 work. I want to get rid of that bishop on F6. Right. That bishop on F6 is really great. Maurice pointed out a line where, yet again, another exchange sacrifice. After bishop takes D5, I think I'm winning because I'm just going to take this pawn on F2. Not so fast. Rook takes C5.
I don't think this one quite works.
Why?
If I take?
And I'll move my bishop.
Oh, so you could just move the bishop and it works?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think it's bishop C6, although that's a very attractive move. How about this one?
Bishop H1.
You're going to go E5.
It was very murky at the end. It was a difficult
what you
position.
said.
Yeah.
And maybe this was a very savvy decision by Fabiano to shut shop.
A sharp position that still had a lot of potential, but I think the draw
doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt him. It's a great result, and I think that at that point in the game, I thought it was a good decision. Yeah.
Very, very cagey move.
Yeah.
Draw. Yes.
We have a phone call with us. Let's see if we can get that on the line. Hello?
Hello.
Hello, how are you doing? Who am I speaking to?
Hi, my name is Rob, and I'm from near Atlanta, Georgia.
Cool.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Rob. All right, you have a comment or question for us?
Comment and a question. First of all, this is a great broadcast. It's extremely dynamic. It feels like I'm watching Sports Center. I just started a chess club this year,
Awesome.
and last meeting we had 22 students playing on 11 boards. So I've been looking forward to the candidates so I could introduce them, with 2 Americans playing in the tournament. And the chess coverage until this show popped up was not attractive to 11 and 12-year-olds.
Uh-huh.
And this is something I'm leaking on Facebook. You guys are doing great. I think it's going to get my kids and the kids in the chess club excited about chess, and it's awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Well, we appreciate
Thank
those
you.
comments. It's what we're trying to do to make chess more exciting for sure.
What a wonderful compliment. And I couldn't agree with him more. And this, again, I want to say that this show was the brainchild of Maurice Ashley,
Yes.
who is a big Sports Center fan. And so for Maurice to hear that, we're mimicking Sports Center and it's attractive, that's music to his heart.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think the only thing missing is dun 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 dun.
We need a theme song, guys.
I think that was copyrighted.
But I think the trick with chess, there are a number of sports, esports that is, for example, that are not as easy to do live. And they're exciting. We're not trying to make chess exciting. Chess is already exciting. Chess is a great game. We all know it's fun to play, but it's not as easy to watch. It's not as easy to broadcast, and especially when games are lasting 5, 6, 7 hours, that's not so easy. So most of us, actually, what we do is we do look at it in a recap fashion. We don't care that the result is known. We come and go, oh, Fabi won. How'd he do it? And we go over the game. So there's no real spoiler alert that happens, right? In some sports, after you know the results, it's like, I don't need to watch for the next 2.5 hours. But chess is not like that. You can get the abbreviated version. So we're able to do that on this show, and that's why I'm excited about this format, because we can just recap the great points, the bullet points, and show just where the exciting moments were. And it's very much like a Sports Center. I think we're going to have to introduce a top 10 moments and the worst moments, too. We'll get to all that as the show goes along.
Right, and I think we had a question from our caller.
Yes, I was going to ask about openings for beginners. And by the way, 2 things. I loved Maurice talking about Vachier-Lagrave's king going down the board like a running back. I was thinking of Jim Brown or Walter Payton as he was talking about that. That imagery was awesome. But openings for beginners, I am not a very good chess player, but I enjoy playing the Sicilian, the Najdorf, these openings that we're supposed to delay until we're better at chess, but I like playing them because it gives me insights into the openings that the top players are actually playing, so then I enjoy following the game more. I'm curious what your recommendation is, with the chess club, with 11, 12-year-old kids. Do we want to push them towards the easier openings?
Well, I think everybody has their own opinions on that. I guess I'll go first. My own opinion has always been that openings for beginners, and we're talking about beginners here, they should be simple, and they should not be very thought out. You shouldn't have to study from a book. You should be able to figure them out yourself. This is a logical development move, therefore I'm going to play it. And, for example, in the Najdorf, there's a lot of moves that you can't explain to me why you're playing them until you have a very deep understanding of chess.
Right.
And for example, just getting to the Najdorf and playing a6 already requires quite a deep comprehension of chess strategy. Whereas, for example, playing something like the Spanish or the 2 knights, the Italian, those are openings which to me make logical sense and are easily explainable and still give a wide breadth of strategy and tactics and interesting positions. So I think that for a beginner, the most important thing is to play some kind of basic opening. An Italian would be a perfect example, with white and black. But focus on understanding why you play moves, why you're doing this, why you're playing that. And that is more useful than playing a quote-unquote good or fashionable opening.
As someone who's been coaching chess for 25 years, over 25 now, I couldn't agree with you more. That is absolutely what you want to do with beginners, because those nuances in tricky openings, they're just not possible to explain in a way that you'll be able to borrow from for another position. Especially semi-open kinds of positions where you make these moves, or even close positions where you undevelop, and you say, well, why are you undeveloping? Why are you putting a knight to the back rank? right? When you just brought it out. Those kind of nuances, those kind of ideas are just too tricky to be explained to beginners. You want to explain the basics, bring your pieces out, control the center of the board, castle early, not those openings like in the Sicilian where your king sits in the middle of the board for 30 moves. It's like, I'm not castling yet. Ooh, I'm not castling yet. Ooh, I'm not castling yet. Oh, wait, right now I'm going to castle. There's so much richness there. So you want to make sure that they get all the basics down. I would add the Queen's Gambit declined to the openings that you're talking about, the Queen's Gambit decline. Definitely something you want to add. Don't get players thinking that D4 is boring. It ain't boring. D4 is a great move. D5, play those kinds of positions as well, and you'll get to some rich chess. As far as the beginners are concerned, you could play that for years and still get rich positions.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with both what you and Alejandro mentioned. I didn't start studying opening seriously until maybe almost 2000. That's a bit later than most people, but for the most part, I recommend to students, don't be studying an opening that, every move is like some theoretical move that you can't really explain in chess terms. Like a lot of the Najdorf theory, Sicilian theory, it's very specific. It's very specific for that position. It's not as transferable. It's like, based on very, very concrete moves that the engines or hundreds of games have been based on, but the Spanish or Queen's Gambit declined. I mean, there's just, you learn about getting the bishop pair close, but like it's not, the theories being the same in a way, or the general strategies being the same for, hundreds of years. And that, I think that's a lot more retainable moving forward for a student. It's a good base to have.
And just as a final point, I think, try to find openings that are, how do I put this, wide and rich in ideas. There's a lot of tricks that you can easily fall into. For example, playing openings that have just one idea. Like, for example, I know a lot of people like the Grand Prix attack against the Sicilian. And even though it's probably perfectly sound, I think it really hinders chess development because you only have one idea. And you're never looking for that richness of strategy in many different kinds of positions that you will need later on. It's just like, okay, I put my bishop here, my queen here, this is my plan. I don't know what to do if I don't do this.
Right.
And those are traps that I see a lot of beginners try to fall into, playing easy openings. Just play openings that make sense, that you can explain to me, and don't worry too much about opening theory. Have your solid foundation in strategy and tactics.
That said, if I may just jump in on that point, because that's such this question is a huge question. A lot of learners out there who are like, please give us more information on this. It's very important not to play those, like you said, monolithic openings. Like, this is all I do. This is what I do. I'm going to keep it simple. Because chess is so rich that you don't want to get stuck in simple ideas only. But that said also, we said to play the Queen's Gambit and the Spanish or Gioco Pianos, those kind of classic openings. But it's important to go over games in all the openings. So there's a rich history in chess. All those great world championship matches, all the great champions. Bobby Fischer, of course, E4, he played C5. Go over those great games. You still want to see the games. You still want to look at those games. You may not adopt those openings yourself, but you certainly want to see the rich heritage that is chess. And looking at those games, seeing the excitement, trying to understand the ideas is always necessary to build your chess culture.
Wow, you guys are pretty amazing. I'm not sophisticated. In fact, any kind of openings to me, as a beginner, were way, way, way over my head. And what happened to me in my chess career is, like, I probably lost the first 100 games I ever played, and most of the time I was getting checkmated out of the opening until I learned just to make a kingside fianchetto. I'd play knight f3, g3, bishop g2, castle. I lose the game, but instead of losing it in 10 moves, I get to lose it in 30 moves. And the longer I lasted, the more progress I felt I was making. And with black, I reversed it. I would play d6, knight f6, g6, bishop g7, and castles. So I was getting a safe fortress for my king, and then play.
We have breaking news from Moscow. I am being told that a key matchup has finished. The Tiger of Madras has done it again. He has come back. He is sharing the lead yet again. He has defeated Sergei Karyakin in definitely the result of the round. Vichy Anand has defeated Sergei Karyakin. Sergei had not lost a single game in this tournament. Anand has been in a roller coaster event. Wow, that is amazing.
He's blowing up all our brackets with that result. Anand winning against Karjakin. Karjakin has been so solid throughout the tournament, but you can't just be solid. Karjakin had the chance after he'd gone +2 in the tournament to do something. Put your foot down a little bit. You cannot win this tournament by trying to cruise. There are too many hungry lions out there, and to see Anand win this game, that's just an incredible result for a lot of fans, especially given the fact that he lost yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, some people are going to be a little bit sad, those who don't want to see Anand Carlsen 3, but a lot of people, really impressive to see Anand just keep coming back after losses. I mean, you don't see this as much necessarily, you know, when the players get, you know, later into their career, they're a bit more stable, but Anand is having, you know, an event that it looks like, you know, when he's like 20 years old, just win, loss, but he's keeping himself relevant and not, like, beating Karjakin. He's the first guy to beat. He's doing everything the first. Most wins, most losses. First guy to crack Karjakin. It's
absolutely. He has 4 wins now in the competition. Yeah. Does anyone have 3? Nobody has 3 wins. He is showing that he's got teeth, and if you hit him, he's going to punch back. You have no idea which Anand you're going to face on any given day. So this is a tremendous result. You mentioned a lot of people might say Magnus versus Anand 3. You know, may not be what you want to see, but you've got to be impressed by this incredible result. Even in this game, it didn't look like he was going to win the game at some point. It looked like Karjakin was going to tenaciously hold it, but he ended up going down. So just an absolutely fantastic result.
And we have the updated standings after 11 rounds of chess in Moscow. The leaders, Fabiano Caruana and Vichy Anand, 6.5 points each out of 11. Sergei Karjakin drops down to +1. He is in clear 3rd place, as now there is a big tie in 50%. Peter Svidler has bounced back from the dead. Svidler-Aronian is wishing he didn't push so hard today. And Anish Giri, well, he finds his 11th draw in a row. He's in his comfort zone. Hikaru Nakamura survived barely. He has 4.5 points. And Veselin Topalov does seem mathematically eliminated from winning the tournament. But
guys, this has been thrilling. This has been an amazing round. And I can't believe I only got 3 of the results right.
Oh, such a pity. We'll get to that. We'll ignore that comment for now. You might be wondering what happens if at the end of the tournament they are still tied at the very top. And this is a very key feature for the event.
No playoffs.
There are no playoffs. This is how the winner of the tournament is decided in case that at the end of the tournament they have the same amount of points. If 2 players are tied, there is what's called the head-to-head, which means the individual results between their matches. In this case, since the winners of the tournament so far, or the leaders of the tournament, are Vichy Anand and Fabiano Caruana, the tie-break goes to Fabiano, as Fabiano defeated Anand in the second half of the event, and they drew on the first half. The second tie-break would be player with the most number of wins in the tournament.
So basically, Vichy doesn't want to tie for first with Fabi.
Absolutely. If he tied, for example, with Karjakin, head-to-head is 1-1. Karjakin won in the first half, Anand won in the second, but the player with the most number of wins will easily go to the Indian player. Then after that is the complicated mathematical formula known as Sonnenberg-Berger. That is not quite the strength of defeated players, but it is more or less the strength in this tournament of the defeated players. It's a complex formula, and the odds of that actually being tied is super low. But if it was to happen, if they're still tied, then there is a drawing of colors and actually a playoff match.
I remember in Olympiads where you would have to calculate the Sonnenberg-Berger amongst 100 teams. It's just terrible.
Yes.
Maurice, you got a comment.
Guys, think about what would have happened if Caruana had won his game today.
Wow. Oh my God.
The tournament would have been over. Right?
No. I don't think
virtually
so.
over.
No,
virtually over. He would have been, remember, he would have been 2 points ahead of Karjakin. He's already 2 points ahead of Anand, right? If he's 1 point up, because Anand has to overtake him and he can't tie with him. So he would have been +1. Right now he's at even, but he would have been +1 with 3 rounds to go.
It all falls apart. I mean, Fabiano Caruana is playing Sergei Karjakin. Even if he had won, he is 1 point ahead of Karjakin, which means if Karjakin wins in the final round, that's Fabiano's tournament. Because remember
Right,
that
but he would
it's
have to lose.
head-to-head.
Karjakin would have to win that game.
That's it.
Also, Fabi's got 2 whites coming up in the next 2 rounds, and Karjakin is not looking like he's doing anything so far in the tournament. So he'd be in desperate straits. Okay, of course,
I think it would be
mathematically anything could still happen. So
I think so.
I'm not trying to say that the tournament mathematically would be over, but what a result that would be. I mean, that would just been a dominating score, +2 on everybody in the field. It would have been +2 on Anand, +2 on Karjakin as well. Karjakin would have to beat him and would have to pray he doesn't win another game. Right now, he's still within fighting distance. He's still within arm's distance of the other players. And Anand,
wow.
Whoa.
Well,
he could win one of those next 3 games easily the way he's playing.
And before we get too excited about the results, which is huge,
yes.
I mean, we have a lot of chess we haven't covered.
Exactly.
And I
Let's
just
get
want to. There's a couple. Yeah, there's a couple of games that I want to look at, and I think that going through the entire Anish Hikaru game is not going to be that interesting.
No.
Suffice to say that Giri outplayed Hikaru, but let's go to that key moment
right here.
And
right
this is
here.
what we have on the board here. We'll be showing you in a second.
I mean, Anish basically has a positional domination.
Explain to us why. What's making this so good for White?
Well, the simplest way of looking at it is just look at the activity of the pieces. Okay, you got this knight stuck on the back rank. It's in a hospital. It's being dominated. There aren't any squares. This knight on h5 is a very threatening beast. There are a lot of variations where the knight can jump to f6 check. This pawn on g7 is hanging. White's rooks, although black's rooks and white's rooks look balanced, in fact, it's white's rooks that are actually much more active in this position. White's rook can slip across the 3rd rank to come to g3, eyeballing the g-pawn. And the most important pawn in the position is this passed pawn on e5. The pawns on d5 and b5 aren't going anywhere. And finally, white's queen is on a much better centralized outpost. So all of these factors are in Anish's favor, and Anish said, well, with all of these things happening, I know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to play e6 and take this pawn, because that's it. It's game over. He's probably expecting at this moment for Hikaru to resign. What can Hikaru do? He's got to take the knight. Rook g3. Your queen is pinned against your king. It's an absolute pin. I'm going to win your queen again. Would you please sign my score sheet? No, says Hikaru. Did you see the move rook f5, g5? This is like the cold shower experience, right? I mean, we've all had it as grandmasters, that we've made combinations. We've absolutely sure we've got the game in hand. And this move, rook g5, it was a blind spot. And suddenly, you don't have time to take this rook with your pawn because of the simple point that your queen on d4 is hanging. Oh, my God. I can only commiserate, empathize.
I mean, you know that feeling.
Oh, do you know that feeling? I mean, it's like blood drains out of your face, and then suddenly you're as bright red as a tomato.
I have to tell you guys, this particular type of blunder, this is common. This is the way grandmasters at the top blunder. In fact, I did a DVD on exact subject called What Grandmasters Don't See. And there's certain things grandmasters are incredibly good at. We see certain kind of tactics, forget about it. You're just dead. We're not going to miss those. But the tactics involving certain kinds of themes, certain retreating moves, backward moves, knight going to the back rank, even linear pieces going to the back rank will be one of those. Another one of those is discovered attacks, unusual discovered attacks, but not just discovered attacks, but discovered attacks that you allow. Like you think, oh no, you can't allow me to do a discovered check in this position. I'm going to kill you, and then you look and you go, wait a minute, there's nothing here. And the person just walks into it, and there's no danger. But a very big one is protected squares, where the squares are protected by pawns. In this case, this pawn guards g5, and the word is a blind spot, Yaz. Lots of times, the pawn is sitting there. Your eyes just don't even see the move, which is stunning, and it looks so easy. It's like, but it's easy, but it's obvious. But we're trained that if a pawn is guarding a square, nothing can go there, and that's it. In this case, this move looks like an elementary miss by such a high-level player, but we can see the psychological factor of a pawn guarding a square means that a piece cannot go there.
And we also have to think about the psychological pressure that Giri has on himself to finally score a win. I mean, yeah, like what I was thinking about is you're Anish Giri, you've drawn all your games, and he's calculated this to win. He missed his blunder, so when he went in for this, he must be feeling so nice. Like finally, like when he was winning against Fabiano, there wasn't necessarily a clear win, right? But if this, you know, if this he doesn't blunder this, if he, in his mind, he's just beating Naka. He's getting that first win on the board, and he's becoming a contender. So I just can't imagine the emotions going through. But he's got a lot of psychological pressure on himself, I think, to get a win.
Wow.
Well,
And,
sorry to interrupt
absolutely.
you guys.
Yes.
We have actually a very important person with us calling. We have Lawrence Trent, Fabiano Caruana's manager, on the phone. Let's see if we can get him through.
My salsa partner.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Lawrence.
Well,
What up,
hello.
Lawrence?
Sir,
Hi.
welcome to a British person.
How's it going?
It's good. Actually, we want to ask you, how's it going? How are you feeling after today?
Yeah, I've got no nails left, but they were already gone some days ago. I can't really eat anything else left on my body without causing some serious harm. How's it going? It's going great to a certain extent, and then obviously, you know, there's just ups and downs. So many swings in this tournament, so much on the line. But what can I say? Today was another one of those days where, you know, out of the opening, Fabiano looked like he'd walked into some serious prep, and it had hallmarks of the Svidler game.
Now, Lawrence, I've seen you watch chess, and I've seen you Fabiano play, and there's not a lot of people that I've seen suffer so much for a game of chess that is not their own. And when today you saw he's running right into prep, the computer's giving +1.
Yeah.
Tell us your feelings right there.
I mean, I was just feeling pretty awful because, given the tournament situation, you know, going all out today, it wasn't actually the plan to go crazy or go all out today. But at the same time, when you play Topalov, even with black, you know you're going to have chances, especially the way he's playing this tournament, where he's giving chances to everybody, it pretty much seems. So I wasn't completely unhappy with the way things went, but then when Veselin started to play so quickly, and it was clear that he had some ideas prepared, and then we had to face this position, suddenly I was not so comfortable. And then amazingly, unfortunately for Veselin, he's really not been on form at all this tournament. And he played a couple of inaccurate moves in the early middle game. And before we knew it, Fabiano had weathered the storm, and kind of was a full exchange up. And you know, we thought that there was a great chance for him to take home the full point.
Were you jumping up and down at this point? Were you guys thinking that this was it? You're going to win this game?
Well, look, to be honest, we never think we're going to win a game until it's won. We've seen so many times this tournament how, I mean, even today, I mean, look at Giri not winning that. I mean, people would just put their house on Giri winning that position.
Yeah, it's not the best position in this tournament that Giri has blown, though. I think that he against another American, I don't know if you remember that game.
Yeah, but even that one, look, I mean, finding moves like King E1 against Fabiano was, I mean, it was, even though the computer goes crazy for it, it's a lot more difficult. It's a lot less natural in some ways to make. But some of the moves Giri had today, just to increase his advantage, it's a much easier position to play and try and convert than the one he had against Fabiano. So, I mean, it's just unbelievable that he missed his tactic today. But we've seen that throughout. We've seen a number of botched positions by a number of the players, and the reason is because there's just so much on the line. And, you know, today there's a mixture of disappointment, clearly, because I believe Fabiano was winning at some point. But at the same time, also there's a huge sigh of relief, because in the final position, when they agreed a draw, the great thing about today's game is Fabiano really sensed danger.
Yes.
And in the final position, when Veselin, I believe, Fabiano offered the draw and Veselin accepted, you know, with white there, it's really a lot easier for you to play than with black. And there were just so many lines with black where you have to be frightened. I mean, even in the final position after, bishop e4, the rook moves, and you go rook takes c5. These kind of motifs where you give a double exchange, take the b pawn and march the a pawn. It's really black who has to play all the precise only moves and find ways to hold the balance. Otherwise, you can end up losing. So when Vesling took the draw, I was actually really relieved because I think only white can win that position. Even though a draw is most probable, black can't really ever win it unless white goes absolutely crazy. So it was good judgment by Fabiano. And, with that draw, he's sitting top of the table with Vichy, who showed absolute class today to beat Sergei. Just a wonderful technical display. Kind of had hallmarks of his victory against Svidler-Aronian. But, of course, the good news for us is that in terms of the head-to-head, we are beating Vichy.
Lawrence, a quick question for you. We know that Nakamura really put a lot on this tournament. Of course, everybody wants to win this event. But can you give us a sense of the mindset that Fabiano came into this tournament with? Was he relaxed? Was he nervous? Was he realizing that the moment is so gigantically huge? Or did he think that, I'm always going to have an opportunity to win the World Championship? What were his thoughts coming into the competition?
Well, I think the main thing that we tried to do with Fabiano in the lead-up, and we had a number of months of preparation, was to obviously tell him how much of an opportunity this is, of course. I mean, everybody knows that. But also to try and keep a relaxed environment prior to going there. So we had a training camp for a number of weeks before the tournament where, of course, we did a lot of chess work, but we also did a lot of other things. We had a huge physical training program with Fabiano.
Eric says that the top players don't exercise at all, not as much as they claim. Can you please put him in his place?
With Fabiano, we have him in basically tip-top shape. He's probably in the best shape he's ever been in. And you could see that and the importance of that and the role it plays if you look at his save versus Giri or his save versus Peter. He just puts up stubborn defense against Giri for 7 hours. I can tell you, he saved that position more or less 3 times, and there are a lot of players in the world that would have collapsed. And you've got to have the stamina to be able to do that. So the physical preparation was a big part of this. And we're going to see now, that really didn't come into. We can see how that's going to play an even greater role, perhaps, in these crucial rounds. And, of course, with Hikaru, it doesn't need me to say he put immense pressure on himself to perform here. We've all seen the interviews that he gave in London or in St. Louis, and how much he wanted this. And I'm not really in a position to say, but maybe that affected him. And of course, the start he had, and not really actually being able to get, a decent run together, some momentum. So. I'm not privy to Hikaru's preparations for it, but I just feel like putting so much pressure on yourself to win this event, in our opinion, was not the way to go forward. Fabiano is young. He will have another chance, of course, but now he's 3 games away. If he can maintain the lead and maintain the momentum,
3 exciting games, and we're definitely hoping that he's able to keep the momentum. Well, thank you for calling, Lawrence. It's always a pleasure to hear from you.
Pleasure, guys.
Good luck to you and your entire team. I know America's definitely rooting for that.
Want to hear from you again. Looking forward to it.
Looking forward to hearing from you.
Well, I'll tell you what, if he comes through, you can definitely give me a call, and my tone will be slightly different, I'll tell you that.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Cheers, guys. All right, bye-bye.
Well, it's a good time for us to take our break. As usual, we have a Beyond the Board for us while we do take our break. Today's topic, I think, is a little more entertaining, and at least less sad than yesterday's.
Well, we need a longer segment.
Indeed. We'll be right back.
What's your favorite part about this sport?
I think the strategy.
How much do you hate to lose?
I don't like it at all.
What about being second-guessed?
I don't like that either.
Well, if I were you, I wouldn't have moved that rook. Checkmate. Sorry.
Whether you've played chess for years or never before, come experience all the sport has to offer at the world-renowned Chess Club and Scholastic Center of St. Louis.
So guys, there's some funny stuff that's happened to us in the chess world. And I want to open it up to you guys, stories that have been so hilarious. I'm going to start off with Victor Frias trying to checkmate me with 2 knights. Now, that's a little bit ridiculous. He was slightly upset during the game because I was adjusting his pieces. He thought I was adjusting his pieces on the squares too much.
Right.
I said, you know, he'd move it. It was always Jadub, and then Jadub. And at one point he looked at me like he wanted to kill me. And then finally the game ended up with he had 2 knights versus my king, and dude tries to checkmate me with 2 knights.
Sweet.
It wasn't that funny at the time when it happened.
You know, there's a lot of chess stories that are funny, like in retrospect, but they're not funny at some point. Also, I was adjusting during a blitz game my opponent's pieces because he just left them everywhere, basically. I wanted to like make it clear. And I was playing against Grandmaster Epichin, and it was like a blitz tournament in the Olympia, and I guess he didn't like that I beat him, so he tried to punch me. Like, straight up. The game finished. He swung him. I was like, what? I was a kid back then, so I had the reflexes.
You were a kid?
Yeah, I was like 15.
Vladimir's a big boy.
I was like, I didn't get that guy out of the tournament.
Right, he didn't make contact. When I was young, a bunch of my friends and I was driving down from Seattle to Portland. We all played in a tournament. Everybody lost their last game. So driving back from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington, cars really somber, you know how it is. Everybody's like in their own world. And nothing on the radio. We can't get anything. So finally we adjust the radio, and bang, on comes this country music, right? Like really loud, really, really clear. So, but it's awful. We just leave the radio on. In the backseat, my best friend Leo, he's suddenly ill, violently ill. He rolls down the window. He throws up outside of the car. And we're all like, oh, this is terrible. Here are some napkins and tissues. And then we hear this sound of a needle being pulled across the vinyl record. And the DJ comes on and he says, God damn. Wasn't that just the worst song you ever heard in your life? Didn't it make you want to throw up? We nearly had an accident. That was killing.
I had a blitz story kind of like Alejandro. Well, it started as blitz. I'm in Morocco playing just a blitz tournament. It was a fun, well-organized event a couple of years back. And there was one local player who wouldn't resign. I knew about that because he wasn't resigning against other games, and I ended up playing him. And I decided to have a little bit of fun. So I was up a queen and a rook, and he still wasn't resigning. And we're one of the last games to finish, so there was a crowd, and I was still expecting him to resign. So I decided to try to get a few more queens. and I'm in a little bit of time trouble, so I'm kind of hustling. But as I'm about to get, I think, a 3rd queen, and it's gonna be a checkmate in a couple moves. I place my queen, I say check, and I get forfeited right away. I was like, and I realized I had grabbed my opponent's queen, like the queen from my opponent. And so I got kind of illegal move. It was just.
Oh, that's awful. So you just straight up lost.
I just straight up lost. When my opponent has a no piece. Illegal move, grab the wrong queen.
Wrong color.
Yeah, never pays off. That matters.
Well, I remember one situation with the Grandmaster who may not want his name mentioned. And while we were playing the game, he didn't think I was a very good player in the New York Open several years ago. He would pick up his pieces, show me the bottom of the piece, place it down on the square, and then screw it in.
Right.
So he's literally, queen goes up, here's the...
This is coming.
This is coming. I was like, what the hell?
I hope you beat him. I hope you beat him.
I crushed that guy.
Thank goodness for that one. I remember as a kid, I was playing in a U.S. Open. You know, I'm like, I don't know, board 200, you know, way down there in the basement section. And my opponent, elderly gentleman, and he comes to the board, big, big smile, beautiful, beautiful white teeth. And as the game goes on, you know, the smile's turning into a grimace, and then as we're getting to time trouble, he got a big glass of water and took his teeth out and put it in the water next to the board. I can't concentrate because these teeth have been smiling at me the whole game. And suddenly in the damn glass. It was awful. Oh, that was painful. Oh, terrible. Talk about a distraction.
There's distractions in tournaments all the time. So, I mean, there are a lot of normal ones. I've had like weddings next to a tournament hall. Oh yeah, we were just playing. It was a big open too. And at some point, you know, we start hearing the music go on. You know, the bride started walking. We're like, what? I mean, this is just next door to us. They didn't realize they booked a wedding next to a chess tournament.
Reminds me of a distraction. What can I say? I was at this tournament and there was this young lady who was trying to get my attention.
Excellent.
Except she had a man who's playing in the tournament. At one point, I'm sitting, you know, I'm just trying like not to meet her eyes. I'm just trying to play the tournament, and she's standing there, and she's standing near the board. I'm trying to play the tournament, trying to play my game. So she leaves. A few minutes later, she comes back, and she's wearing the shortest short skirt, and everything is like boom, boom, pow. Distraction. Oh my God. Very hard to focus on the game after that. I managed to avoid her in the tournament. Thank goodness.
I actually heard of a story in a tournament in Russia. I don't know how true this is. That a chess player actually hired a prostitute to come into the tournament and not do anything, just wear skimpy clothes and bat her eyes at the opponents.
Oh,
that was the deal. I don't know if it's true or not, but there's the rumor going around.
What about the guys who put the card keys when they need a GM norm and put the card keys right on the table? You know, I need a win. Here's the card key.
I hate those.
Back in Seattle, a friend of mine, he is deaf, in Washington Deaf Association, they wanted me to do a simul for the deaf players. And I said, sure, great, let's do it. And it was the Swedish center that they had organized the event. And you know those wall dividers, you know, you kind of just pull them. Well, on the other side of the wall divider, it was like amateur bagpipe night. Now, under the best of circumstances, you can hear the bagpipes played by professionals for like 3 minutes. I'm playing a simul, and there's amateur bagpipe going on, right? And right in the middle of the simul, I go, will somebody stop these guys from playing? And there was nobody who was hearing. It was the Deaf Association that I was playing. I was like, I'm killing, I'm dying over here, you know?
I got a nice hearing story. I'm in Texas. It's my freshman year. I was playing a tournament, and I had gone to my first rave. And because of that, my hearing was totally off. My ears are ringing. It's like I'm not used to going to concerts, so the decibels is really high. And I'm playing a strong grandmaster in the morning. And we have a normal game. I was pushing, but I was looking for, it was turning into a draw. So I offer a draw. And, he's like, what? And I decide to just, you know, make a signal or something, and we agree to draw. Then he comes to talk to me, to talk about the game, and I try to say something. He's like, what? I say, and I can barely hear him, and then, like, it just hit me. I'm like, wait a second, did you go to the same rave last night? I can't hear anything, man. I can't hear anything, man. I've been trying to make a draw from the beginning.
That's brilliant. Yeah, that's brilliant. Well, we could do this all day long. Chess has its stories.
You know, for sure. We just scratched the surface on this one.
I'm Mike Matheny, manager of the Cardinals and chess fanatic. Many people don't know that St. Louis has a chess history as rich as its baseball. At the world-renowned Chess Club and Scholastic Center of St. Louis, across from the World Chess Hall of Fame, our goal is to teach, play, and promote the sport. Come to the Central West End and experience all that chess has to offer.
You could fly to Venice, or Paris, or even Copenhagen. You could fly all over the world. But why? When you could just come to St. Louis. Your trip begins at ExploreSt.Louis.com.
And we are back to Today in Chess here in the Central West End of the great city of St. Louis, the capital of chess in the United States. And we have a very special guest with us today. It is our very own Rex Sinquefield, benefactor of the club and great lover of the game. Rex, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Rex, you've been following these candidates.
Yes.
With the rest of us. It's been a barn burner.
It has been.
How have you been enjoying the games?
Oh, I've been enjoying them a lot, and I have to confess I'm sort of rooting for the local homebody now that Fabiano Caruana has moved to St. Louis, as has Zucaro, and it looks like at least one of them is in a good position to come out of this thing the victor.
Today, though, he kind of blew some good chances.
I know. I heard. I didn't watch it, but I heard you guys commenting. Yes, most distressing.
Absolutely. Now, we know that people make blunders from time to time.
No.
It happens to the best of us. But apparently, there's a special clip that has been created just for you. Why don't we take a look?
Oh, my.
I think they actually might resign in this position. Oh, maybe not. You think they're going to play to checkmate?
Well, I'm not so sure about this decision of leaving the rook on g1 alive.
Hold on. I am going to give Rex the benefit of the doubt that he doesn't know the promotion rules of the defeated Boston.
They were arguing, and now they're still arguing over this point, whether or not this should be allowed. Guys, a mirthful moment at the game. Back to you.
Now, Rex, that was awful. I mean, you had 10 grandmasters watching?
I did.
And they, you know, how'd you feel? You're like the host, and you make a small mistake. Well, okay, maybe it's a gigantic mistake.
It wasn't.
Pushing your pawn and hitting the clock instead of putting the queen down. And they're all howling illegal move on you.
Yes.
This must have been one of your worst moments in your career.
Actually, I thought I deserved it. I should have known about this. And, you know, but I think the best take on it is Yasser Seirawan's take. It's sort of like Bob Hope being kicked out of his own golf tournament.
By the way, when we mentioned Bob Hope, these youngins, Alejandro and Eric here, they didn't know who Bob Hope was.
Well, you know, what do you do when you're talking to people who have so little education?
The burns keep coming.
Well, that was certainly an interesting moment. What do you think when Nakamura touched his king and tried to Jadoub?
Oh. Did he do the Jadoub after he touched it?
Yes. Of course.
Oh, I see. That's not allowed, is it?
Slightly illegal.
He learned that from me, I think.
Hanging out in St. Louis too much?
That's the Sinquefield Jadoub, right.
Now, this show, Today in Chess, is a brand new show. How do you feel about the show so far?
I think this is incredible. I think it's a winner. And all we have to do is get the word out to everybody in the world. If they could know how great this is, how enjoyable it is, and informative, it's as good as anything I've seen in any sport, in any format. I mean, you guys are truly amazing, and I think it's a stroke of genius doing this right on the tail end of a big tournament. So we basically get almost everything that's happened already and summarize it for the chess fans around the world. They don't have to spend 5 or 6 hours watching in the morning. They can do it all in an hour or two here with the best commentators in the world.
We'll take all the credit. It's okay. We can keep going. Keep piling it on. It's all right.
I'm only sorry that Jennifer's not here, but you know, and tell her I said that, please, so I don't get, you know,
we all love
so I don't get in trouble.
We certainly enjoy having you as always, and the fact that you're such a great benefactor for the game of chess makes it even better. That's why we let you in the room.
Yes. Well, certainly not because of my chess playing ability.
As we know. Rex, I got to throw in a question here. I mean, the Aegon people have announced New York, and there's, some controversy whether or not it's going to take place. If New York, for any reason, were not to happen, and, for example, if Fabi were to qualify as a challenger, do you think St. Louis might be interested in hosting a World Championship match?
Well, you know, I was talking to Rex Sinquefield about that. And, I think St. Louis would be very interested under those conditions. In fact, I would think, I have conjectured to some, that if Fabi wins it, I wouldn't be too surprised if FIDE approached us directly.
Very good.
Wow,
that would be amazing for chess.
It would be amazing.
Awesome. That would be Fantastic.
But you know, it's 130 years ago since the first official World Chess Championship match took place, and the games right here in St. Louis, New York, St. Louis, and New Orleans. And in fact, we've located the exact spot where this happened, and we're in the process of putting up a giant banner and a giant plaque to commemorate that, so that everybody in the city knows about the incredible event that took place near downtown St. Louis 130 years ago.
Pretty wonderful. By the way, guys, he reminds us of that all the time.
Well, I was there then.
Well, thanks a lot, Rex. We
Thank you
appreciate
very
being
much.
on the show.
Thank
Back
you.
to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rex. Definitely making so many things possible, not only today in chess, but so many wonderful events coming in here to St. Louis. Even if the World Championship doesn't land here, we do have the Sinquefield Cup later this year. We have the U.S. Championships. What are they coming up in? 2 or 2.5 weeks?
Yeah, exactly.
The strongest players in America will be competing here in just 2.5 weeks, including
3 of the top 10 in the world.
3 of the top 10 in the world. Wesley So, Fabiano Caruana, Hikaru Nakamura will be fighting for the top prizes there. The U.S. Women's Championship is also incredibly strong. We have new blood coming in, very young players in the U.S. Women's Championship, as well as some established and strong players. We have Irina Krush will be playing. Anna Satonsky's coming back to the tournament.
Very nice.
Very nice. We'll have, of course, Tatev Abrahamian, one of the always favorites, and Nazi Vaikidze, who is one of the strongest female players in the country right now. Katerina Nemtsova, who finished second. It's going to be a much tighter race, I feel, than the previous years.
Well, these are going to be the strongest U.S. championships ever, full stop,
Yes.
and I'm looking forward to them. And for those events, of course, we're going to do live broadcasts from Move 1 onwards.
From Move 1, we'll be here. Well, it's going to be the most important tournament in America. We're not going to miss a single move of it.
Exactly. Now, going back to the games, how did our fine 5-time world chess champion, Viswanathan Anand, who had a heartbreaking loss not less than 24 hours ago, make his comeback against a player who, by the way, hadn't lost a single game and looked...
He's super solid. I mean...
Untouchable.
Untouchable. He hadn't been in trouble. He really managed his time well. He managed his positions well. His repertoire was super, super solid.
Yes. Shall we go through the game?
Absolutely. I think it's a great time to go through the game between Vichy Anand, who just defeated Sergei Karyakin, a key game in today's round.
And leapfrogged, vaulted himself into first place.
Yes.
So we have the Rui Lopez, Spanish opening, and the Berlin.
Not a surprise.
And in a previous round, Vichy had castled here, whereas I thought the move c3 was more precise, and that was what Vichy played today.
Though we've been seeing exploration in this variation, as Caruana decided not to play c3, went for an entirely different idea, castling long against Hikaru Nakamura.
Exactly. That was with and also a very key game.
Yes.
So, everything looks very standard, and I think the move d5 is also quite standard, is it not, Alejandro?
Well, unfortunately, my repertoire tries to involve more exciting openings of the Berlin, so I'm not a big expert on the anti-Berlins, but this looks like a pretty standard Petrov type of position arising.
Exactly. And at this point, you know, we can be forgiven if we thought that the game was going to head towards a very balanced and drawn game.
Yeah, but Vichy showed that there is still a little to fight here, and that little is enough to cause discomfort even to Sergei Karyakin.
Exactly. Posting up the knight on c5 I thought was a very good idea. It just cramps black on the queen side and tickles this pawn on b7. Eventually, with this move, queen h5, by the way, eyeballing h7, that's they're already starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable. We'll speed things along, and they got themselves into a middle game with bishops of opposite color.
And I'm not going to lie, I saw this position. This is one of the first things I saw waking up today. I opened my phone, I was looking into the game, and I thought, okay, next.
Really?
I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, I didn't pay a lot of attention to the position. I just counted the pawns. I saw opposite colored bishops. I figured this is going to head to a draw.
Whereas I felt that because of the d6 outpost and the control of the open d file, I thought that white had some smidge, definitely in his favor, but yes, draw the most likely result. Let's speed it up. Things move crisply along. We got to a position like this, and suddenly a very shocking move that I hadn't seen coming. B6.
think
And
this
with
was the
this
start,
move,
yeah.
with this move, suddenly it's no longer a lot of fun for black, because now after rook c7, white is beginning to make a little bit of inroads, and we can see very clearly that on a good day, white has a very simple idea in the position of playing the move h3, h4, swinging the bishop to f4, and swinging the bishop to d6. Suddenly, it's genuine pressure.
By the way, guys, when I saw this position of rook c7, suddenly it was deja vu all over again. It felt like that game that Anand beat, was it Aronian in this end game? Yeah, it was Aronian when he had white and played that ending with active king. And you just started feeling like, wait a minute, Anand in the end game, that guy's pretty good. It's not, he may not be mating you on a stick, but it looks like he shows superiority in the end games against these players. And that does come from a lot of experience playing years and years of playing the best players in the world.
Yeah, and I think, after his disaster against Caruana, which occurred in a pretty sharp middle game, and he really went astray there, he's had a success in these slightly better positions. And him and his team, they looked at this. There's not a lot of risk for white. You have a chance for the small advantage, and Anand is playing these slow positions, these small positions well, and they thought, okay, that's the type of position that Vichy's doing well in right now, and they wanted to go for it.
I remember back in the day, I used to play in New York against an international master, Walter Shipman, and all Walter wanted to do was trade queens. He was about 60 years old, and I was a young buck in my 20s, and he would just trade queens. Like, nope, there will be no mating attacks. But oh my goodness, the suffering you had to go through in those equal end games where he's just like, no, we can sit back, get out the water and sip and slow moving it. And Anand, is not 60, but he's taking these guys deep into end games where they think they're supposed to be equal, and he's winning those games.
Yeah, absolutely. Plenty of endgame to cover. We'll take a look at, I think, a couple of key moments in this game. Before we get into that, let's update the viewers on the standings after 11 rounds of chess in Moscow. At the very top sit Fabiano Caruana and Vichy Anand, 6.5 points out of 11 each. It's Caruana that stands at the top because he has the better tiebreak in this case, as the head-to-head favors him. He defeated Anand in the second half of the tournament. Anand-Karjakin, he sits at 6 out of 11. He's still in striking distance, but desperately looking for a win in one of the last 3 rounds, especially if it comes against Caruana in the final round. That would be a huge result. Peter Svidler jumps back to 50%, joining Lewon-Aronian and the ever-drawing Anish Giri, who seems to be unable to break his curse, even though he had a winning position today against Hikaru Nakamura. Hikaru not showing very good chess, but did manage to survive today. Vesely and Topalov still in the basement of the tournament.
Right.
And we do have a phone call with us. Let's see who our guest is. Hello?
Hey, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hey, Alejandro. My name is Frederick. I'm calling from Alabama.
Hi,
I
Frederick.
just wanted to tell you guys have an excellent show. I also wanted to ask a question. It's basically your opinion. It's not like there's any right answer or wrong answer for it. I just wanted to ask all the four commentators who they think is greater. You and Yasser and the others. Garry Kasparov or Bobby Fischer. I know there's no right or wrong answer, but I just wanted to hear your opinions on that question.
So it's a pretty straightforward question. Garry or Bobby?
Well, who was the greatest world champion ever?
Yeah.
For me, it's Garry Kasparov.
Eric?
For me, Bobby Fischer is a what-if case. For Garry proved it. He was there at the top the longest. And so by achievements, by what he did, Garry Kasparov, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think it's pretty impossible to compare generations as usual, or very difficult at least. If Bobby Fischer, he was world champion at 29, if you win the world title and then you stay at the top for the next 10 years, you win tournament after tournament, you stack up records that nobody can touch, then you have the longevity that people can say, well, we have something to compare it to. If you just win the title and do nothing else, you might have been a superlative player, and he was absolutely superlative, almost machine-like in his technique and his execution, his understanding of chess. Then it's a little different. You can't really compare a legacy there and say, well, where's your record? And so Garry won the title as a young man, and then continue to dominate chess for the next 15 years, staying #1 from 85 to 2000, winning tournament after tournament, separating himself from all the best players, and we're talking about amazing players, your Karpovs, your Anands, your Kramniks, all the top Ivanchuks, the top players of his generation and the next generation. And so I think that just because of that incredible record of achievement, you've got to give him the nod. We can't talk about being a better player, but in terms of being a greater champion, I think it's got to be Gary.
Yeah, I think absolutely.
Just to correct Maurice there, basically 85 to 2005 when he retired. Gary retired as the world's #1 rated player, and there was only one rating list that Vladimir Kramnik had just peaked him. So basically it was 20 years of domination.
Right, he did lose his world championship title in 2000, though. No.
2000 he did, but
right, in 2000, yeah. So that,
but he was still number
one. That was a hiccup, but he was still number one.
I mean, the fact that he reached, what was it, 28-51 or 53?
When there was only like one other player
even close.
I mean, 100. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that the players today or there's inflation. I'm not saying anything of that.
No.
But to make that rating when the next highest is 27 something, low 2700s, it's amazing. Right. I mean, he is the second highest rating in history.
Right.
It's an amazing amount of achievements that he has. It's not like he had a couple of good years. It's not like he had he didn't even have a good decade. He had a good career.
Yes,
he dominated chess from the moment that he stepped up to that world championship match.
And in truth, I never thought anybody was really going to challenge Gary, at least in my lifetime. And we talk about Magnus today. If Magnus continues to achieve what he's already done over the next 10 years, Magnus may well be the greatest chess player the world has ever seen in the history of the game.
But that still has to be...
But it needs 10 years of Magnus doing what he's been doing for the last 10 years.
And I think we have Fabiano Caruana trying to stop that from happening.
Right.
We have a lot of young players definitely with a lot of desire to stop Magnus Carlsen from being #1. I think it's unanimous. We agree, Garry Kasparov, as far as being world champion, the greatest legacy, we do have to give the nod to Gary, who, by the way, will be joining us in a phone call in a few minutes from Croatia as he joins us in the show with his thoughts on what's going on in Moscow.
We left it in the game between Vichy and Sergey. Again, such a critical game for the tournament leaders. We've just seen this situation after Rook C7. And then it was like this creepy crawly. You just picked up a pawn on E4. You hardly felt it, but it was a tooth that goes off the board. And Vichy, with this pawn on C7, now it's very clear. There's only 2 results. And Sergey certainly had chances still at this point. But then, once we got this position where Vichy had achieved this pawn on F6, I know we felt that, there's still, something there's a blockade that was possible, some fortresses, I agree, but I thought, or I felt that Vichy was going to reel the point home. Most difficult thing in chess is to win in one position, don't we know that?
Yeah,
Vichy did it very, very, very smoothly. We'll just keep going very quickly to the key position. And
that was it. You just flew by it right there, Yaz.
Right here?
Right there when you, yes, the rook move and now this move, A5. And I'll jump to that moment with you in the game right here.
Take over?
Right here. The Indians still like white for sure, but this pawn on A6 is a pawn on A6. It's sitting there. It's defensible. The bishop can always go back to C4. No problem. The Indians are giving this a clear edge for white, being up a pawn, but not saying winning yet. But when A5 appears on the board, this is when the change starts to occur. King G3, and now Rook F7, King F4, and Rook H7. And suddenly, after this rook makes this maneuver, the edge is starting to go up for white. Rook down, back to F7, Rook E8, King to D7, and Rook to A8. And now, this A-pawn is definitely under fire, and the Indians go completely crazy now that the king, this was a great move to bring the king towards the center of the board, Rook to D7, and now the Indians are already saying, busto, like you're dead. And I think that was the culprit, pushing this pawn and thinking that, you know what, a pawn on A5 will be a distraction, but it turned out that it's that pawn that became the focus of white's attention, and that extra weakness, in the principle in the endings, principle of two weaknesses, right? Can we find another weakness to work off? Here he's got the F pawn, but he can't make it go through. Suddenly you give him another one, and he starts to milk you from two sides of the board. And that's really was the downfall. You did not have to play that move A5.
Well, we're almost at the end of the game. How did it end? How was it that...
Well, it's extraordinary now that Maurice has just identified the moment. A6, A5. Why would you put a pawn on the dark square bishop?
I can't really understand that, right?
That's a really shocking decision by Sergei.
It's not the type of moves that he plays. He's usually such a solid, patient defender.
And this was the key moment. He just plays this...
And in the correct
killer
time,
move.
Rook E7.
Rook E7.
Just completely
Because
dead.
now after the rook is traded...
And you have to trade.
And you have to trade. Now there's no stopping White's king from coming towards the E8 square, which is the promotion square, of course. We get the king to F8. And also this bishop, if Black's king doesn't stay around to hang around and defend the pawn on A5, that gets... snipped off the board as well. So it was the right time to resign, but it's a remarkably bad move.
Actually, I think this position is won without the A-pawns.
That is important, yeah, that to just show that, just make a couple more moves, yeah. Right now, like King B7, King F6.
Bishop has to go
Bishop back, King G7, King back, King into F8, King D7.
Actually, you have to play G5 instead of King D7, which is kind of important.
Like here, G5?
Because if you play,
right.
just to show King D7, go ahead and play King D7.
Then it's a Zugzwang.
Then it's a Zugzwang after G5. Or
right.
Bishop G5.
Right.
Right,
no
agreed.
moves.
But but even there, right? G5, that's gift a pawn.
Yeah. Well, that's just an extra.
Well, that's going to be
King
just,
F8.
that's just going to be deadly.
Yeah, it's too many pawns.
So that's too many pawns.
Yeah.
So it's just over.
If you have to give up that G pawn also, then it's just easily winning. And
but we can talk about the blunder that Anish Giri made. Okay, I mean it's forgivable. You make a tactical oversight.
I don't know about forgivable at this stage.
I'm sure. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Anish's team is not saying it's forgivable right now.
No.
They're thinking, what did
this
you do?
move A5
very strange.
Just violates all the rules of strategy that we know in Bishops of Opposite Color
endgames.
Don't put your pawns on the color of your opponent's bishop. I mean, that's written down in the FIDE rules somewhere. I mean, you don't do that.
You think it'd be like, Sergey, I played an illegal move?
Yeah. The arbiter. Please let me take that move back. So that was huge. Eric.
So why did he do it? I mean, we know Sergey's a tough defender. I've been trying to figure out myself. Did he see something that he was afraid of, or he just got impatient, which is not usually in his, character. So I've been looking. If you don't play A5 yourself, then White will play A5. That's probably what he was considering. But
what does that do?
Yeah, what does that do? He's afraid of something.
I'm going to tell you why he played A5.
Okay.
He's human and he cracked.
But that's too simple.
But sometimes the simplest explanations are the truth. I mean, here he panicked. He just didn't know what to play.
Was time trouble?
If you don't know what to play, you put your king to C8. You put on the right square. Sergey is a very good defender. I don't know. I feel like he did see something that maybe was not in the end correct, but there was something why he played.
He must have seen
like
some kind of ghost or something. But
it's not a ghost. It's just like some plan for White here on the dark squares after A5. Like it's some sequence that I've been trying to.
Well, the thing is, the move it doesn't matter what plan you have in the dark squares. A5 didn't help you. it just doesn't matter.
True that.
That's true.
And what's kind of interesting is that as the computer takes a long look at this position, it is coming up with A5 as its first choice, thinking that other lines are already much worse for Black. But I just go down the line, like the move Bishop to E6 is giving as a secondary line. Check here, King to C7, and now King to G3, Bishop back to D5, A5 himself. I'm just making first moves from the computer lines, and it's still not totally convinced even here. And now it's switching its thoughts again, and it still doesn't have clarity. It still doesn't have clarity. So it's sort of like once you play A5, you're never taking that move back. And all other if you really have to play A5, you're probably resigning.
Yeah, you're
probably lost, and that's what ended up happening in the game. Even though he might have been able to come up with some computer-like tenacious defense, it's super hard to handle that position as a human, and that's why the principle is there. Don't do certain things because it's going to be easy for the other guy to figure out how to beat you.
Yeah. Yesterday we had a poll actually up on Twitter.
Okay.
And I think we have a graphic to show that. Let's see, we got poll is Caruana versus Karjakin going to be the title? Is that going to define the tournament?
Round 14.
In round 14, 22% said yes, Karjakin will win and go on to challenge Magnus Carlsen. Now remember, this is before the results of today. 52% said yes, it will define the challenger, but it will be Caruana that comes ahead. 12% said no, Aronian will be coming back. I don't think that's going to be a lower number considering the results of today. 14% said no, it's Anand that will come back. And that is definitely going to be a higher number considering the results of the day. Huge results in Moscow, but thank you for joining us in the poll.
Those 14% are celebrating and talking about tenacious defense.
And
it was tenacious defense.
It was very tenacious.
That Peter Svidler today held on against Lawrence-Aronian.
And I believe that we have another Twitter poll up for you guys. And this one is, which one is the luckiest player in Moscow so far?
Whoa.
And we're giving you the choice of the top 4 players in the tournament so far, which are, of course, Vichy, Fabi, Karjakin, and I forgot who we put on the last. I think it was Aronian, because at that point he was still the top 4. Yeah,
I see.
Yeah. So between those 4, which one do you think has been the luckiest in this tournament? I know who I'm giving my vote, but I'm not going to bias you. And we'll see the results tomorrow.
Tough one. Okay, but it was tenacious defense that held the day for Peter Svidler in a crucial game again with Lawrence-Aronian.
This one was a key game.
Yeah.
If Aronian had won, which he could have,
easy,
the tournament is wide open.
Exactly. We're talking about a three-way tie for first.
Three-way tie for first, a mess on the tiebreak system.
Well, definitely Peter spoiled Levon's result today by winning with black pieces. It was a Slav defense that quickly transposed into a Queen's Gambit accepted, where essentially White's getting this extra move A2, A4, which is either useful or less useful because of the B4 square. In other words, we have a Caro-Kann on the board. All right, but this was a line that Peter essayed earlier in the tournament.
By the way, that was an inside joke because Yasser loves the Caro-Kann. Just for those of you who know why, he has to use those words. So throw that in every broadcast.
Yeah, how does it feel to go an entire tournament without a Caro-Kann? Because I feel pretty happy.
Painful.
Yeah, we're all thrilled not to see any of those boring
I see the tears. I
Caro-Kanns.
mean, the tracks are pretty noticeable there, Alejandro. Okay, so we've got a classical isolated queen pawn position. Yes. And trust me, dear viewers, if you're going to become a good chess player, you're going to have to study isolated queen pawn positions for both sides.
Oh, yes,
because
absolutely.
I guarantee you that in your career, you will have such positions.
Many
and
times.
So this game is going to be very, very worth your study time.
So why don't you just identify the features, because we had a caller earlier saying his students were watching the show, and so that explain that isolated D pawn and why it's so important.
Okay. Well, essentially, as you can see, the pawn on d4 is isolated. By an isolated pawn, we mean it can't be protected by a fellow pawn. So the pawn on d4 requires protection. The main weakness of an isolated queen pawn is the square directly in front of the isolated queen pawn. In this case, it's the square d5, which means the d5 square is a great outpost for the defender, in this case, Peter Svidler.
Because no pawn can chase that knight away from that square, only pieces can challenge that piece.
Precisely so. The advantage of this extra pawn, the isolated pawn on d4, pardon me, is that it does support the e5 square, and here we see, classically speaking, the knight on e5 is very well posted as it's defended. The space advantage of the d4 pawn versus the e6 pawn is very often we get a rover. That's a Jennifer Shahadiism. We get to bring our rook up the board and over. Rook to the third rank, rook goes across to either g3 or h3. Many of these isolated queen pawns feature typically white trying to attack the black king. The open C file is usually a source of great counterplay for the defender, as the defender brings his rook to c8 and tries to get tactical operations down the C file. Let's see how the game continues. With this move, bishop c1, essentially Levon is offering his a4 pawn as a bait. like, go ahead and take on c3 and take the pawn. Why didn't he take the pawn? Why didn't Peter Svidler capture this pawn on a4? Takes, bishop takes a4. I'm a big pawn grabber. I love grabbing pawns. There's the move rook d3, and also you have to, whenever this bishop, this light square bishop is not defending the pawn on e6, you always have to look out for tactics that involve knight takes e6, knight takes f7. I appreciate that the rook on d1 is hanging, and queen takes e6. These are very, very typical attacking variations for white, and Peter wanted no part of capturing that pawn on a4.
And by the way, this is exactly the kind of position that Aronian needs. Something imbalanced, something crazy. He wanted to win today. That was a big part for him. Winning was important, so he's willing to take the risk, even though the inches are saying, wait a minute, that looks like a free pawn on a4. It's hard for a human to just grab the pawn when you realize that might be an attack happening on the other side.
Yeah, and he knows he's playing against Peter Svidler, and Peter Svidler is not much of a pawn grabber. In fact, he's often the opposite. He gives up pawn for activity, especially as a Grunfeld player. So for him, he did the practical choice and did not want to enter Aronian's game.
Well, having said that, that move bishop c6 is a good defensive move.
Well,
Don't get me wrong.
Sorry to interrupt you, Yasser, but I think that we should add a fifth commentator to this game. As we have Gary Kasparov joining us from Croatia on the phone. Hello, Gary.
The shame by my predictions.
The shame of your predictions. Are you kidding me?
Welcome to the
Look
club.
At mine. Look at mine got destroyed. I followed you on the Giri one.
I managed to be wrong on all 4 games, but just an hour before the end of the round, I thought I would get 3 out of 4.
And we are going to take you through your predictions as well as ours. Let's start with that. How are we doing? Because it's not every day that I can see I beat Gary Kasparov.
Svidler beating Aronian, and just don't tell me that anybody says Svidler with Aronian.
Svidler beating Aronian, I don't think anybody
is. But let's start from Topalov Caruana. A draw was said by everybody in the panel. Gary Kasparov said Caruana was taking it. Well, this is why you tune in to watch us.
Look, he was so winning. Come on. As if they conspired against me. Because,
Gary saw 24 hours in the future. Couldn't believe that at the 25th hour that would be a draw. Aronian lost to Peter Svidler. Nobody gets that.
Yeah, but Aronian was better. But I thought he would not have enough energy to win. But to lose this position, come on.
That was sad.
He had to try very hard. It's just
Guys, I just have to say this is the only score I got wrong.
But let's set aside Anand-Karjakin. Anand did well, but Karjakin played quite poorly because I think it's.
But we got
we're not there yet. We're not there yet. Here's where following you failed me.
No, but Giri Nakamura just 3 moves before they agreed on draw. I mean, Giri was winning. I mean, did multiple wins.
Do you think this is a conspiracy?
Knight e5 was, I think he could win in blitz,
What is going on, Gary, with Giri? What is going on? He draws every position.
Even instead of knight e7, rook e5 probably still was winning.
Of course,
everything was winning.
But I don't think that the queen d4 was the best move. Either you take on d5 or you play queen g4. I think queen g4 was so nice.
But let's not talk about specific moves. Gary, psychologically, what's going on? This guy has winning positions and doesn't convert them. How come?
But I think it's something psychological. Actually, I thought that Giri had some problems. You remember the game he played with Magnus in Qatar?
Yes, absolutely.
And then it was neither, and Giri, it was equal, but then Magnus outplayed him, and Giri was in trouble. Yes. And Magnus played quite poorly, that Giri, I think sacrificed exchanging, but a very powerful initiative. And then he offered a draw. I mean, he could play without any risk. And, it was still a draw, but Magnus had to fight, hard actually to save the game. And he just offered a draw. And I thought that something is wrong. It's kind of a Lecco syndrome.
A Lecco syndrome. Wow. That's tough words there.
Yeah, and I think in this tournament, Giri suffers, from whatever you name it. But this is kind of a psychological, weakness. It's maybe more than weakness.
Yeah, it's turning into a disease.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Because I mean, his games today and he plays, part of the game he plays extremely well. I mean, he totally, his game was outplayed Caruana, outplayed Nakamura. I mean, he could score two wins. I mean, and you don't have to be 2,800 player to win these 2 games.
Gary, turning to the 4th and final game, Vichy versus Sergei Karyakin. Your thoughts?
No, but let's finish with Caruana Topalov. I mean, explain me how on earth Caruana could blow it up.
Well, I mean, you're the expert, right? You're the one that's been in those situations. How is it possible? You've played Topalov several times.
I mean, take on a bishop takes f4, an exchange. How on earth could you keep 2 bishops, on board? You can take 1. And it was just an exchange, and I don't see, I mean, maybe there was some technical difficulties. Probably there were none.
Exactly. No, it's been I think at the press conference, if you see Caruana talking about bishop takes f4, he's just like, I don't know why I didn't do it.
It's incomprehensible.
Yeah, and by the way, the final position was already, I mean, I don't know, I didn't check with computer. Was it equal, or Topalov had some chances?
I think it's messy. Lawrence Trent came on earlier.
Very messy.
Yeah, very messy. He thought actually it was easier to play for white, and we were looking at some variations without a computer as well, and we started to realize black's not necessarily in danger objectively, but there are so many tricks here. You got to be careful.
It's very difficult. I mean, just you attack the rook, and then he has to make some decisions. After bishop before, a tough decision to make. I mean, just sacrifice the exchange back or play rook h5. I don't know.
Yeah, very tough decision at that point, and I think Caruana fans should be happy that in that final position he decided to offer a draw and that it was accepted.
Yeah, and Caruana was down on time.
Yeah, considerably down on time. He took a long think into this rook d5 move. Yeah.
What about Anand though, Gary? Anand showing his mettle, losing yesterday and coming back and winning again.
Yeah, hats off, like has piece. They've been not many, but very sharp.
Yeah, he's been absolutely incredible.
It was. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, he played the second game, and of that, quality. It's another masterpiece, the one he beat Aronian, and I've enjoyed. I have to admit, I enjoyed very much watching him beating, top 10 players, basically from almost equal positions. This tiny global advantage.
Yeah, he showed a masterful class today. Absolutely no doubt about that. And
absolutely. I mean, you could you could see the difference in class. I think Karjakin for a while, Karjakin thought it would be another draw, and and then wish he was improving position, bit by bit, step by step, and when Karjakin realized that he was in deep trouble, and it was too late.
Exactly.
Yeah. My question is, after f4, did Karjakin still have the chance of saving the game?
Well, entirely unclear.
And we can actually maybe pull up that position on the board for the viewers. I think f4 was actually a pretty critical move. We didn't quite get a chance to get to it yet, but we can analyze that position after f4. A beautiful move, actually, by Vichy.
No, it seems to me that it's probably rook c8 is definitely losing it, because now f5 h4, which was, by the way, amazing. f5 h4. I mean, it's I like this, the attacking g5 pawn, and
which was a continuation of the game.
Activating black square bishop.
So you think rook c8 was already the losing move?
Yeah, maybe you should try whatever, but maybe it was already lost.
Right.
But again, he did extremely well. So now I'm surprised, that he could recover, and it makes me proud, because now I understand, more than 20 years ago, I beat a very good player.
In New York, in 1995, I was there, Gary.
I was there as well, Gary, and let me ask you, now that you've seen the tournament where it is, yesterday you felt like Caruana was surging, but today it just looks like everything got shaken up. What are your feelings about who you think might win this event?
Yeah, but again, I think it's statistically, if we just, forget about psychology, I think statistically Caruana is a big favorite now. Yeah, because it's very much between him and Vichy, so maybe Karjakin, but Caruana is ahead because, if they tie, he wins.
And he has 2 whites coming up as well.
Yeah, and Caruana has 2 whites, Vichy has 2 blacks. And, in this tournament, Vichy was not very aggressive with black. So basically he has only, one chance to make +3. So Caruana has 2. But I think he's a heavy favorite now. But there's psychology, and I don't know how he's going to handle it. Definitely today, his nerves, betrayed him.
Gary, I got to ask you the question. I mean, again, it's a bit of a psychological matter here, but we've seen Svidler-Aronian breaking down.
We already discussed it yesterday. I think there's something wrong psychologically, just deep down, because it comes, time and again. When he reaches the climax of the tournament, the possibility to make a break in his career, he fails.
Man, I mean, how many?
No, it's only psychology. You cannot explain what he did today or what he did yesterday or how he played with Vichy. So, and again, we talked about his disastrous performance in London in the second round 4 years ago, and it's all the same.
Yes.
Yeah, it's complete deja vu. Poor Aronian, I mean, it's such a nice guy to root for. He's such a pleasant person, but it just seems every time you root for him and he fails.
It's once I made a comment, maybe not wasn't very nice, but I tried to be objective. And after Aronian said, "Oh, if I lose the game, so I'm smiling," and he's trying very nice. I think that's wrong. So that's this. I think he takes his losses too easily. He's not made of, material is not hard enough, he's made of.
He's a little bit soft in that regard.
Yeah, I think, definitely Caruana is different. It shows.
Gary, I mean, they're all great players, but as we going into what I call the championship rounds, nerves play a most important factor. Of the players that you see competing for first, who keeps their nerve best?
Look, I don't think that Karjakin's loss today was a result of a nervous breakdown. I think it's just, lack of, class. I mean, it's just because Vichy played a great game, and it's Karjakin is not, he's not in the same league in understanding position. So, and I think it was, he thought it would be another easy draw and just missed, a few critical points in the game where he could build probably a stronger defense. So he's okay with nerves, but, you still have to match your, nerves with your class and, quality of your moves. Still, Karjakin, he plays white with Topalov, and he's playing black with Aronian, but Aronian is in really bad shape now, and white with Caruana. I wouldn't write him off. Anand is fine. I think it's just Vichy. Vichy was quite nervous, definitely 20 years ago, but now I don't think he's under huge pressure because it could be another match with Magnus, and he may not have a match with Magnus. I don't think that it's such a big pressure for him. So that's why he's relaxed, and it helps. So that's why I think he recovered quite easily after, disastrous game against Caruana yesterday.
And Fabi?
And Caruana, look, he's a favorite now, and I'm curious to see what happens because he's very close. Again, he's a heavy favorite. He's very close, and he even has, I would say, the wings of history in his sails because he's younger than Magnus, and this is kind of a match that brings most of it's most wanted match because we want to see a younger player of Magnus' caliber, challenging him. Definitely, it will be more exciting than seeing the third match between Vichy and Magnus. But still, it's up to Caruana now just to make it happen because there's 3 rounds to go, and if he keeps missing Bishop takes F4, anything can happen. But I think it's about 3 players now. It's clearly, we're talking about Caruana, Anand, and Karjakin. So we'll see what happens.
Wow. Gary, thank you so much for your insights. Enjoy your holidays in Croatia.
Wait a minute. We're going to let him get away without trying to trying to guess tomorrow's results?
Sorry.
We want to see Gary at 0-8.
I should play safe now. I should play safe now.
No, we're not letting you escape. Let's see.
No, I should play safe.
Here we go. Tomorrow we got Caruana. Oh, he said Giri's a draw. He's already got a draw. Okay, before we get to that one, we've got the matchup with White, Caruana against Aronian. What is your prediction there?
I would bet on draw.
Okay.
I still think Aronian should survive.
All right. What do we have next?
All right, the next one for Gary.
Sergei-Karjakin with White against Veselin Topalov.
Karjakin wins.
All right, Karjakin wins, bounces back.
And the third pairing, Nakamura with White against Anand.
Draw.
Okay. Solid draw there.
And finally, Svidler against Giri. I think we already got draw. All right, Gary.
Well, thank you, Gary. We look forward to your 0 out of 8.
All right, we got it. We got it, Gary. No problem. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Looking forward to a 0 out of 8. Well, tough crowd.
Well, it's our turn, guys. We got to do the predictions ourselves, see how we are going to go. Do we have the standings actually
Well,
somewhere?
first of all, I mean, let's get the current standings.
Do we have the correct standings? Because I think the ones that we
my
showed...
graphic artist is working on a big plus for me today.
Oh my God, a big plus.
A big plus.
Wow. Well,
all
we'll
right,
see about that.
Let's see the standings as we speak.
Do we have the standings?
12 results.
Oh, please.
Okay, they're coming, they tell me.
They're coming.
All right.
Oh, with bated breath. You know, Yasser gets to win something, he just gets all excited.
I don't believe this for a second.
No! No! Maurice is that can't be right.
That can't be right.
No.
7-5. Each of us has 7 and 5.
No way.
I'm gonna watch the entire Today in Chess again just to see about these predictions, and then I'm gonna call my lawyer.
I'm 6 and 6. No, I think I should be 6 and 6, but you know, I feel bad getting free points that I don't deserve.
Right. I think you're 6 and 6. I think I'm plus 2.
Oh, they claim that they've verified that I did take that score yesterday, which I don't feel right getting bonus
such
point.
bias.
But at the
today's picks, guys. Let's start with what do we have on top of the line? It is Fabiano Caruana versus Vachier-Lagrave. I'm gonna go with my Bay. He's gonna win 1-0 for Caruana.
Okay, guys, I'm looking ahead. I've got a real whitewash kind of a day coming up. I'm going with Fabi as a victor in tomorrow's round.
I can't help but agree with Yasser.
Whoa.
A win for Fabiano against Aronian.
This one's rough. Everybody says win for Fabi. I really would love to see Fabi win, but I'm gonna step out of the box and say that he's going to only draw tomorrow, given that he has White against Svidler in the next round. I'm going to look ahead.
All right.
Next one.
Next matchup, we have Sergei-Karjakin with White against Veselin Topalov with Black. That's going to be pretty interesting to see if Sergei-Karjakin can bounce back. It was his first loss today in the tournament.
You want me to go? I'm picking Sergei.
All right.
As a victor.
You have to ask me. I'm picking Sergei as well. I think he's going to put a lot of pressure on Veselin in the opening. And this is, I mean, if you're his team, you guys say Sergei. I mean, you know, we've drawn a lot of games, but now this loss really changes the plans. I think he's going to be a desperate player tomorrow, but he's got the preparation to put Topalov under pressure. So I'm going for a win for Karjakin.
I think with the way Topalov played the beginning of the tournament, he's somewhat stabilized, although some of his moves just really sucked. And I don't know. I feel like Karjakin is not going to bounce back from this one. I'm going to say this one is going to be a draw.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and agree with Maurice. I think that Karjakin's repertoire is too solid, and I think Topalov is sick of losing. This is going to be a draw. Next up, we got Nakamura with White against Vichy Anand.
Oof. Okay, well, like I said, I'm seeing a whitewash here. Hikaru's been having a horrendous tournament. Vichy is on some roller coaster ride that even he cannot explain. I'm telling you guys, I think Hikaru has been having a horrible tournament, puts it all together, and he's got a very big score against Vichy coming into the event. Hikaru's going to win this game.
I can't agree with that. the way he's been playing, okay, granted he had an incredibly lucky game today against Giri, but Anand, I think Anand will have stabilized himself enough to think, I'm not losing with black the next time, and he's going to put it all out to make sure he doesn't lose this game, and I'm going to call this one a draw.
Yeah, I'm going to be on the same boat. I think Anand is a little bit too solid with black. He's not going to give Hikaru those chances. This is going to be a draw.
I guess it's going to be 2-on-2 this whole time. I'm drinking the same water as Yasser. We're living in the same house. I feel it. I feel a win for Hikaru over Anand.
Wow. Okay, and
finally we have the game.
Draw. That's that. I'm going to go with a draw on this one. I'm going to join Gary Kasparov and agree that Anish is going to go.
I mean, you're going to join Gary Kasparov. You're going to join 3 billion chess fans, whatever the number is. Come on, 600 million chess fans. Say this one's a draw. You'd be an idiot to say otherwise.
I'm in last place. I can't lose much. I'll go for Anish Giri here to beat Peter Svidler.
Why is he
okay, see, I was going to do that because I was on last place, but since he said he's going to win, I'm going to go with the draw. Just to get away from the Canadian. Draw in Svidler-Giri is my prediction.
Wow, okay. And once again, I really want to get the check to make sure that the prediction lines are accurate, because I feel, guys, that I should be leading with a +2.
+2.
No. 7-5.
Come on, it's ridiculous.
I'm 6. I should be.
You should be 6-6.
I should be 6-6.
You should be 50%, and the tail enders.
Oh, you mean that your score is +2? You're only one over me, if that's correct. But apparently they've checked it, and somehow I can't see, that can't be right.
I don't believe any of this.
I don't remember it the same way. My memory's not the same as it used to be, but I remember that.
Guys, all I can say,
think I'm 6-6.
Predictions aside, the rounds are getting more dramatic. They're getting more thrilling. The players are playing great chess. I mean, they're bringing their A games.
Not only that, but I think they're doing
the tension
both.
is just fantastic.
And I think they're also making more mistakes. I think
because of the tension.
Because of the tension. Today we saw a day that was full of mistakes. Yes, Anand versus Karjakin was masterful. Absolutely impeccable game. But Giri versus Nakamura, okay. Topalov versus okay. And what was the last game?
That was horrendous.
Guys,
Svidler-Aronian between Aronian and Svidler, and we haven't gotten
even gotten to that one. Could we just very quickly, just a couple of minutes, the critical point of this game?
I think we should look at it.
We have to show the collapse
just right here, this right here, the collapse of Aronian, because maybe this is the game that throws him out of the competition completely, and he's done. It was this moment, I think, was the most dynamic moment. We had gone through some moves up to this point after Bishop C6. He managed to lift his rook up, then bring it over to the king. I mean, what more can you want? You get that rover, as you were talking about, rook up and over, and then a trade here, G6, knight back to E5, and then this moment, bishop on H6. The pieces are starting to swarm around the king. A little bit here, rook E8, F4. I mean, F4, right? Bam! Stick a pawn in his throat, down, bishop F8, bishop G5, bishop E7, and now knight to G4, preparing some incursion on the square. And guys, it was right here, right at this moment after H5, that the engines are saying, wait a second, why don't you just stick a knight in here and now play the move queen to E4 with some enormous threats, sacrificing here on F7 is coming, rook and queen, and oh, what about your B-pawn? We're going to pick up on this side, the defense being given as knight to F6, queen B7, and this, the engines are saying, is significantly better for white. He could have gone for this line. He avoided this possibility, Eric, and instead just started trading down pieces.
Well, I mean, he was worried about knight h6. He was worried he wasn't getting that knight out, but that's something. When you're swinging your rook to g3, when you're committing everything to the king's attack, you gotta be pretty precise when you're attacking. So he didn't see that continuation, I think, after knight e6, and afterwards just was so frustrated. He put all his pieces on the right square, clearly got some decent preparation, but couldn't find a way to break through, and he got frustrated, and then I don't know what happened in the last half of the game.
And then he still had chances. Maybe you want to work through the rest he has. He still had chances, but psychologically, he had already thrown away most of his advantage, and that's not what you want to do in these kind of critical moments. You want to go for it. Guess what? He could have gone for it in this game and lost anyway. What did he do? He played it safe and lost. You're going to look back at this and go, what the heck? Why didn't I go for it in the important moment?
But then he even made it worse by losing. I mean, that position you should be able to hold that. Like now people are really counting Aronian out.
And rightfully so. I mean, math-wise, it's really tough. He's going to have to face black against strong players, and I don't see him coming back from this one.
Guys, so we go to, I mean, you're not giving enough credit to Peter Svidler, because even in this position, after the move queen c2, I mean, Levon has let, some of his chances slip, but he's still the one applying pressure, and knight takes g6 is a winning threat. This isn't the kind of move that you really, really want to make with black, but kudos to Peter for finding a very good defensive idea with the move rook g4. Levon is threatening, rook g5, threatening to snap off this pawn on h5 with check thanks to the pin. King h8, and again, another very difficult but fine move. Rook f3, starting to prepare ideas like rook h3, sacrifice on h5, and perfectly timed trade, by the way, on e5. And now this is the first time in the entire game I thought that Peter had stabilized, so to speak. I mean, it's still, I think, preferable for white, but
especially, don't you think,
with all the minor pieces traded off.
Because white really wanted to play f takes e5, right? I mean,
exactly.
That's what you really wanted, but you couldn't take back with the f pawn because the rook on g5 would be hanging to the queen.
Exactly.
And that, I think, was a critical distinction right now. That knight takes e5 was playable, and a pawn didn't land on e5, because if you could put a pawn on e5, then the f7 pawn comes under heavy fire. But maybe that was the difference. The fact that you allow this possible exchange by putting the rook on g5 allow for this to happen, and then advantage dissipates.
Yeah, just to show what you're talking about, Maurice, if you could recapture all other things being equal, fe5, and just double the rooks on the f line, this is really, a mash, great position for, So suddenly we're in an endgame, but after queen takes b7, hey, look, it's an extra pawn. I mean, come on. White's pressing. Here something went seriously wrong. I don't know about this move, rook b5, guys. I mean, something to be said for rook h5, something to be said for rook g5, something just to be said for h3, and just make sure that the king never comes under attack. Something really went wrong.
But the engine's already giving equal in this position for black. We can just saying that black's activity is tremendous. It's a pawn sack. He judged it extremely well, did Svidler, to get to this position, because they're just saying, no, your king, the king's the thing. The king's a little exposed. h4 could always happen if you play h3. And that king is looking just a little funny. And black's king, remember how much gunfire was being trained at that king? Now that king is perfectly safe, no danger at all. And it's white who has to worry about his king.
I'm not sure I'm going to go with that. I understand the engines would say black is fine. I think I would have played h3 and preferred white's position, okay? Just in a practical game, just saying. But that's not what happened. And after rook b5, suddenly, with the move queen a3, it's genuine counterplay, and maybe white, just at this point, after having lost the f4 pawn, should start, bringing it back. And
kudos to Svidler. He has a perpetual in this position, doesn't take it. He wants to go for the win. He feels there's already some kind of advantage in the position.
That a little shakiness has already been demonstrated by Levon at this point. Queen b2 was probably the key error. Essentially, after a6, I'm sure Levon overlooked that after he was planning the simple recapture takes, he simply missed. Rook c8. And suddenly, this is an awesome threat of rook c1.
Yeah.
and that was really.
Let's show why Rook C3 is not playable.
Oh yeah, pardon me.
That's important.
After Rook C8 with a very powerful threat of Rook C1 check and about to be made, Rook C3 walks into Queen takes D4 check, and White will lose a rook and the game.
And yes, I have a question. What about Rook F3 instead of Rook C3 here?
Yeah, Rook F3 is definitely more complicated, but I think the line goes Rook C1 check and Queen H4.
Yep. Rook C1 check, King, and suddenly it's White's king that is getting hunted.
Yeah.
Well, you don't want to play
Rook G3. Yeah, probably have to play Rook G3.
Rook G3 is basically box, right? And now I'm just going to play.
Yeah, Rook D1 threatens Rook takes D4. It threatens Queen F4 check. It threatens, I think, at this point, too many things.
There's
Queen H2 is a threat.
B6. Just to once again complete the, for completion's sake, there's this Rook D2 check.
And what do you think of that endgame? So after, let's say, King to E1?
Well, that is lost, but I think instead of Queen F4 check, just Queen H2 was...
I beg your pardon?
Queen good enough, no? I think Queen H2, you're just getting mated.
Queen H2, B7, and I'm just getting mated?
I'm assuming so. That's how chess works, right? You have a bunch of pieces there.
These patterns in your mind.
You got Queen G1 probably, and if King E2, Queen F1 is a mate on F5, so King F3 is forced.
Okay.
And now probably Rook.
Queen F1, no, still.
Queen F1 check. This looks like it should be. Yeah, this is unacceptable.
Yeah.
So, just to complete the score, C5 was played.
Queen E4,
very nice move.
And Queen D2, I think psychologically tells me that Aronian is just not in a good place, because if he was psychologically stronger, he would have found at least some more resistance. Yes, he would have gone down.
Yes.
Don't doubt about it. He would have gone down.
Rook A3, H3,
some move that actually kept him in the game. Queen D2 loses instantly.
Absolutely.
Queen B1 check and Rook A8, and you cannot prevent the rook from coming in.
Yes.
Pretty basic.
Very, very painful defeat.
Absolutely painful defeat.
That's why
for all of Armenia.
Yeah, I don't see Levon coming back, and that's why I thought that Hikaru tomorrow.
Hikaru's playing Anand.
Pardon me, who's Hikaru? No, Hikaru is playing Anand. Sorry, who did I pick to beat Aronian? Oh gosh, I have to look at it. I'm sorry, but I'm just saying that after this, I think Levon psychologically is.
Wait, sorry to interrupt you, but we have incredibly important news.
Please.
We have corrected the standings after much checking.
Thank you.
6 to 6.
I feel better. My favorite number is 6, so there it is. Yes. And I thought it was fair to let Yasser have a lead for now. Before I spank him.
3 rounds to go. Anything can happen.
But I went out on a limb for the next round, guys. Come on.
I've been doing that every round, Yasser.
Yeah, no round has featured 3 wins, and I'm predicting 3 wins tomorrow.
Well, that's definitely a bold statement. We will see if that happens. Join us tomorrow at noon Central Standard Time. We will be here from St. Louis covering in Today in Chess the Candidates Tournament. Another exciting round, key for deciding who will challenge Magnus Carlsen in the World Championship in 2016 in November.
Oh, yeah, you're
Thanks for joining us.
Hey, it was wonderful.
It was good. Good to see you, and we'll be here tomorrow.
Yeah.